International students at Hogwarts. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 151 Lou Ren's Bizarre Adventure. The other three looked confused. What happened? Where are you going? Ron hurriedly put away the pumpkin juice. He almost knocked over the pumpkin juice on Lou Ren's robe just now. Hagrid's cabin. Harry said, his face turned pale. I have something to check with him. What's the matter? Hermione also ran a few steps and caught up with him. Lou Ren's words are right. If you don't have anything to do, it's rape or robbery. Hagrid wants a fire dragon, so someone brings a fire dragon egg to play cards with him? And loses? Why would someone walk around with a dragon egg? Go and just meet Hagrid, and he doesn't care about a dragon's egg. There are not so many coincidences in the world. After you have encountered several coincidences, you should consider whether it is someone else's arrangement. Lou Ren added on the sidelines. Harry ran all the way outside Hagrid's hut, where Hagrid was sitting on a chair, emptying the rats from the mousetrap he had set in the Forbidden Forest the day before into a large wooden bucket. He was in a very good mood. When he saw Harry, he greeted him loudly. The exam is over. Would you like a cup of herbal tea? Norbert has learned a new word. No, Hagrid, I have something very important to ask you. Do you remember the man you played cards with? The man who lost Norbert to you? I can't remember. He wrapped himself in a cloak. It's very normal. The Pig's Head Bar is full of people like this. They hide their heads and show their tails. He may be a dragon vendor. Hagrid recalled, casually as he spoke, he strangled a mouse that tried to bite his finger. How did you guys get into the conversation? I mean, most people wouldn't want to reveal that they have a dragon egg with them, right? Huh. He asked me about my occupation, and then we talked about Hogwarts. We had a good chat, drank a lot of wine. He also asked me which animals I took care of, and then we gambled a few times, and he lost all of them. Hagrid said happily. In the end he lost his nerve and used the dragon eggs as a bet. Of course, he tested and taught me about raising magical animals, but you know, it's not difficult. Get me? What did he ask you? Hermione's expression became serious. Let me think about it. Hagrid counted on his fingers. How to get close to the hippogriff, the living habits of the unicorn, the method of controlling the three-headed dog and the breeding of the snail. Hagrid's expression changed suddenly. With no alcohol interference at this time, he was clear-headed and realized something was wrong, and Harry and the others had already left without saying a word. Harry planned to go to Dumbledore, which was the most reliable option at present. But they were in vain. Professor Dumbledore had just left the school. Harry's eager words angered Professor McGonagall, and the plan to monitor Snape fell through. Snape was very vigilant. Harry's decision was also made. He had to get the Philosopher's Stone first. If Lou Ren didn't know the ending, he would never agree with this decision. This idea is really too strange. We are afraid that something will be stolen, so we go to steal it first. What's the difference between this and shooting someone for fear of suicide? What if Voldemort directly snatched it from you? What if you just sneaked out and met Voldemort? What do you do if you meet Voldemort when you break through the level? But, thinking back to those naive caregiving levels and Dumbledore's mysterious operations, Lou Ren always felt that this was a trial for Harry. Harry needed to grow up. So Lou Ren didn't stop him. He even wanted to go back to the dormitory to sleep, but was forced away by Harry. Because Lou Ren participated in the design of the level, he was an indispensable help. So, in the middle of the night, Lou Ren and the others wore the invisibility cloak and came outside the corridor on the 4th floor this time. The door was not locked, but ajar. A harp was playing automatically inside. With the sound of music, Lu Wei slept very sweetly. Ron stepped over Lu Wei's lap and pulled the trapdoor open. There was a bottomless hole below. It was pitch black, and nothing could be seen clearly. Lou Ren cast a floating spell on himself, and then flew down gently. The air under the trapdoor was very cold and damp, and he finally landed on something soft. A devil's net. He yelled a few words upwards, making Harry and the others jump down too. After all three of them landed on the ground, Lou Ren created a ball of flames with his magic wand, and dispersed the vines that had climbed up to his inner thighs. It must not be dispersed in advance, or what if these guys fell to their deaths? By the light of the fire, Harry saw a stone corridor, which was the only way. They walked along the corridor for a while, and Harry, who was walking in the front, stopped suddenly. The corridor had come to an end. and the space in front of them suddenly became larger. The corridor seemed to lead to a cliff. There was a cliff in front of them. A cave could be vaguely seen on the opposite cliff. There was a thick fog under the cliff. Unclear depth. Luren? Question mark? Something is wrong with this level. He remembered that this level should be a lot of flying keys. Look, there. Ron saw the broomstick on the side of the corridor. We're going to fly there on broomsticks. They picked up the brooms, but a new problem came. There were 4 of them, but only 3 brooms. Hermione sat on Luren's broom very naturally, and then wrapped her arms around Luren's waist. Luren and I are riding one broom, and you are riding the other 2. Hurry up. Hermione urged. Harry and Ron scratched their heads, got on the remaining 2 brooms, and flew out of the corridor. It was the first time in Luren's years that someone hugged his waist. It was an extremely strange feeling. He felt as if an electric current was passing through his body, and goosebumps even appeared on his arms. He is now only grateful to the designer of this level. Flying into the air, several stones the size of human heads suddenly shot out from the mist. Harry quickly moved his broom to dodge them, and then a long flaming snake hovering and dancing rushed out of the mist, with a diameter of about 1 meter. The cliff swept across the air, and Luren and the others avoided these traps only because they were dangerous. Several times, Luren could even hear the sound of stones breaking through the air and the heat wave of the fire snake. After coming to the hole on the opposite rock wall, Luren looked back at the fire snake that was gradually disappearing in the thick fog, and the bottomless cliff, and couldn't help but get excited. This was more exciting than he thought. More, but no loss. Hermione had dismounted from her broom and was looking into the cave with her wand light. In fact, there is nothing to observe. There is only a half-open door inside, and a broom that was thrown on the ground casually. If I'm the first one to come in, I'll throw all these brooms down. Luren complained. Voldemort is still too immature. End of this chapter. Chapter 152. Cavalry must have horses. Harry took the lead and pushed open the door directly. The room was pitch black, but just as they stepped in, the room suddenly became brightly lit. Harry and the others saw an astonishing sight. They found themselves standing on the edge of a huge chessboard, before black stone wizard pieces, each taller than they were. At the other end of the room, there are white chess pieces of the same style. Although the chess pieces had no facial features, Luren could feel that the chess pieces were staring at them behind the pawn as a door. Luren breathed a sigh of relief. The world line is closed, and the puzzle game is back on track. He was quite worried about Professor McGonagall's innovation. We have to beat them to pass this level. Ron whispered softly. I'm afraid we have to join the chess game and act as pawns. He touched the horse of a black knight beside him, and the stone man came to life and turned to look at Ron. Can I command you outside the chessboard? Ron asked the black knight after thinking about it. The black knight shook his head. Then we must, join you before we can go there. The black knight nodded. Ron fell into silence, and finally he made up his mind. Well, don't blame me for speaking badly. The 3 of you are very bad at chess. Let me command and I will lead you through. Harry, you go instead of the king. Hermione, you replace the castle. Luren, you replace the knight, and I will be the bishop. Before Ron finished speaking, the chess pieces he was talking about slowly exited the chessboard with their backs to the white chess pieces. Looking at the chess pieces walking out of the chessboard, Luren suddenly had an ominous premonition. In the original book, it seems that Ron was knocked out. Where is he? Luren couldn't remember clearly, but looking at the strong arms of the white chess pieces on the opposite side, he felt that he couldn't bear it all at once. Just in time, a black knight passed by him, and Luren grabbed it directly. The black knight turned his head and looked at Luren. Luren, come down. Black Knight? Luren grabbed his armor directly, and the magic text flashed by, pulling it off the horse. How can the cavalry have no horses? Luren explained, watching the knight without a horse walk out of the chessboard with bewildered steps. In fact, it is better to add insurance for yourself. If you are really beaten, you can use your horse to block it. Then it was Ron who commanded the black chess to fight. One by one the chess pieces were crushed, and when another black knight on the side was crushed by the white queen, all 4 felt fear. Luren's heart trembled when he watched a stone statue weighing several tons being smashed to pieces. If he hadn't quietly tried with a shattered black piece, he would have passed by waving his wand. The reason why he can't be reckless is very simple. His spell can only leave a small hole on the chess piece. Fortunately, when the white pieces are about to be eaten, they will consciously go to the corner, and then consciously split into pieces. Soon, The corners were filled with wreckage of chess pieces. Ron stopped directing suddenly. "Lu Ren, I'm sorry." He looked at Lu Ren with guilt on his face. "This is the only way. You need to be eaten." Lu Ren smiled. "It's not a big problem. Don't panic, it's fine if you win. If you lose, I'll definitely want to see Merlin." Then Lu Ren took a step forward under Ron's command. Queen Bai rushed forward, swung her arm, and knocked on Lu Ren's horse's head, smashing the whole horse to pieces, while Lu Ren jumped off the horse at the last moment and escaped unharmed. The flying debris even scratched his cheek. He wiped away the remaining blood, and couldn't help being shocked. If he was hit with that force just now, his brains would probably be knocked out. Then Ron moved 3 steps to the left. Checkmate. The White King. King White took off the crown from his head and threw it at Ron's feet. They bet and won. The surviving white chess pieces bowed and retreated one after another, making way for the door. The 4 rushed through the door without looking back, and walked forward along the next corridor behind them. The chess pieces returned to their original places one after another. In the next room was a giant monster in heavy armor. Its head was smashed, and its white brains splattered all over the floor. At least they don't need to fight the giant monster anymore. With a giant monster of this size and excellent equipment, the 4 of them might not be able to fight in such a small space. They opened the next door, and the scene inside took them beyond belief. The second Lu Ren stood opposite them. "Lu Ren? Dumbledore, you violated my portrait rights." As soon as the 4 of them crossed the threshold, a blue flame rose from the opposite side of the room, blocking the exit, and Lu Ren, who was standing in the room, said, "Play cards with me. If you win, I can pass." Then thousands of cards emerged from the wall, flew to Lu Ren and the others, and lined up the wall, waiting for them to choose. Lu Ren and Harry briefly explained the rules of the game, and Harry thought for a while, then let me go first and test his deck. Lu Ren also thought it made sense and agreed. Then he planned to make a set of cards with Harry to see what kind of routine the Lu Ren opposite was. Lu Ren took a careful look at the cards to choose from, and then blurted out with a bang, "I don't know if I don't look at it." I was shocked when I saw it. There are everything in the alternate card library. There are really all kinds of fairy cards. Forbidden cards such as the Great Storm and the Pot of Greed actually exist. The Big Storm can destroy all the magic and trap cards on the field, and the Pot of Lust can draw 2 cards. These gods can actually be released. People who are used to playing Hearthstone may feel that Pot of Greed seems to be just ordinary, but in fact, under the rules of Yu-Gi-Oh!, this card is so strong that it explodes. It can be said that the cards in Yu-Gi-Oh!, as long as they have the ability to draw cards, are very powerful, let alone such cards that have no negative effects at all. Seeing the Pot of Lust, Lu Ren thoughtlessly stuffed 3 cards. If it wasn't for the limited number of cards, he would have filled his deck with a Pot of Lust. After stuffing a few powerful forbidden cards, Lu Ren helped Harry find some other cards to stuff in. The main purpose was to clear the field and save his life, so that Lu Ren, a half-bad guy, could also figure out the opponent's routine. In the end, Harry conveniently stuffed the 5 parts of the Archmage into it. Seeing it, Lu Ren shook his head. It's a bad idea to bet on a dog, although you can win directly by collecting all 5 parts. Harry's deck actually doesn't work well with the Archmage. As a result, after the duel started, Harry started with Pot of Greed x3, and then there's no more. He has collected all 5 parts of the Archmage. A Phantom of Dumbledore was summoned, and then with a wave of his hand, the opposite Lu Ren disappeared. Lu Ren's face turned straight. "Harry, you can eat whatever you want. Others play cards rely on luck. You rely on longevity." End of this chapter. Chapter 153 Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, To be honest, Lu Ren has never seen such a scene. But it's always a good thing to get through levels quickly. They went to the next room. Sprout's mechanism should be the Devil's Net. Professor McGonagall's is chess pieces. Flitwick is the one who casts spells on the stones. Lu Ren's card game, and some Professor's troll, full of tricks, but also there are 2 checkpoints. Professor Dumbledore, Snape and Quirrell choose 2 out of 3. After they step into the room, 2 flames rose up in the room, quickly blocking the entrance and exit. This flame is also as unusual as the flame just now. There is a purple flame in front of the door leading to the front, and a white flame that blocks the retreat. There was nothing else in the room but a table, 5 bottles with inscriptions on them, and a roll of parchment. Hermione grabbed the parchment. Lu Ren stood on her left, Harry stood on the right, and Ron tiptoed behind, and they read together, "Danger ahead, safety behind. 2 bottles are for help, 3 bottles are for bone erosion. 5 wizards have 5 rooms, and the rooms have different colors. 5 wizarding 5 schools, each with a different name. Only 1 drink per person, 1 type of wand core, 1 form of animagus. Drinks, stick cores, and shapes are different. Scheffer from Hogwarts lived in the red house. Alger of Durmstrang can become a dog. Audrey in Moon Mountain likes to drink tea. The greenhouse is to the left of the White House. Greenhouse owner drinking coffee. A man with a unicorn core can become a bird. The owner of the yellow house has the magic wand of the phoenix's tail feather. Those who live in the middle house drink milk. Maxim from Boxburtons lived in the first house. The core is a veely-haired wizard who lives next door to a cat-turning wizard. The neighbor of the wizard who can turn into a horse has a wand with a phoenix core. The core is a troll-bearded wizard drinking butterbeer. Elena of Alvermorny's core is the tail feather of the thunderbird. The wizard next door to the blue house is from Boxburtons. The wizard who cored his staff with a veely-hair had a neighbor who drank mineral water. A bottle with the name of the fish-turning wizard's alma mater can move you forward, and the cat-turning wizard's alma mater can send you back to where you came from. The 3 of Harry? Question mark. Luren? Question mark. Professor Snape, haven't you read the script? Exclamation mark. What the hell is this? I remember the original question was not that difficult. He didn't give up. Since Voldemort had passed, the one with the least amount of liquid in the bottle was the correct answer. He walked to the table, took a closer look at each bottle, and found that the inside should be cursed. I can't tell how much liquid is in each bottle. And to be honest, Luren didn't dare to bet that the checkpoint became like this, and it seemed that he could only reason honestly. Hermione let out a long sigh of relief and smiled. Great. Hermione said, this level is not magic, it's a test of our logical reasoning ability. Many great wizards' logical reasoning ability is shortboard, and they have to be trapped here forever. So Voldemort, who successfully deduced the result, can't be regarded as a great wizard, Luren complained in his heart. So which bottle should we drink? Harry asked eagerly. Don't worry, Hermione muttered to herself as she picked up the parchment, read it a few more times, and walked up and down the row of bottles. Luren showed a look of relief. Sure enough, Hermione is always reliable at critical moments. Then he watched Hermione's expression change from confident to expressionless, and then confused and puzzled. Her brows were wrinkled into a pimple. It's too complicated, I need to think about it. Hermione crossed her legs, leaning her back against a table leg, thinking. Luren also picked up the parchment and was writing on the ground with his magic wand. He first summarized the information. The color of the house is red, white, green, yellow and blue. The core of the stick is phoenix tail feathers, unicorn horns, thunderbird tail feathers, veely hair and troll beard. Drinks are tea, coffee, milk, beer and water. The forms of the animagus are dogs, cats, birds, fish and horses. The next step is reasoning. He first drew 5 squares on the ground, representing 5 houses, from left to right, numbered 1 to 5, and Maxim of Boxburton lived in the first house, on the far left because Maxim lived next to the blue house, and Sheffield, a Hogwarts wizard, lived in the red house, so the color of Maxim's house could only be one of yellow, green and white. As mentioned in the hint, the green house is on the left of the White House, and the blue house is next to Maxim, so she cannot live in the green house and the White House, and she can only live in the yellow house. Madame Maxime of Boxburton lived in her yellow house and used the tail feathers of a phoenix as the core of her staff. Next door to Maxim is the blue house, so the second room is blue, and the neighbor of the wizard who can turn into a horse has a wand with a phoenix core, so the owner of the second room can turn into a horse. The next step is to infer the color of the third house. The greenhouse is to the left of the White House, so it cannot be on the far right. It can only be in the third or fourth position if the greenhouse is in the third room, that is, the middle one. The conditions say that the people living in the middle house drink milk, so the owner of the greenhouse drinks milk, but the condition states that the owner of the greenhouse drinks coffee, which is contradictory, so greenhouse is in fourth place. The color sequence of the house is yellow, blue, red, green, and white. At the same time, through these, we can also know that the person in the third red room is Shepherd of Hogwarts, and she drinks milk. Audrey in Moon Mountain drank tea. The owner of the greenhouse drank coffee. Sheffield drank milk. The man with a giant beard as a stick core drank beer, and the elimination method learned that Madame Maxim drank water. The person who uses veely hair as a core has a neighbor who drinks water, and the person in the blue house uses veely hair as a core. Now the grid on the ground. The first one is almost filled. Madame Maxime of Boxburtons, who lives in a yellow house and drinks water, uses a magic wand with a phoenix core. The only unknown is what she can become. As for the fifth house, we know nothing about it. Lu Ren's action attracted the other three people. They watched Lu Ren deduce on the ground, and finally almost filled the first grid. Inspired by a flash of inspiration, Hermione hurriedly pulled out her wand and joined in. Hermione continued to reason on the basis of Lu Ren. The wand core has a troll's beard and drinks beer. The first four are directly excluded, because their current wand cores and drinks have been determined, so they can only be the fifth. Elena's wand core of Alvermorny is Thunderbird's tail feathers. Thunderbird's tail feathers ruled out house 1, 2, 5, and Alvermorny prevented her from being in room 3, so Elena lived in the fourth room. The person with the unicorn core can turn into a bird. Currently, only room 3 among the 5 houses does not know the form of the core and animagus, so it can only be attributed to Sheffield in room 3. Currently the 5 elements of room 3 are complete. The wizard with Vila hair in the core is living next door to the wizard who can transform into a cat, so there is a person in rooms 1 and 3 who can transform into a cat, and Sheffield in room 3 can already become a bird, so Madame Maxim can only be the older cat girl. Hermione made 3 reasonings in one go. After the reasoning was completed, Lu Ren and the others already had the capital to go back the same way, and the information in the 5 squares was almost filled. Harry looked aside for a while, and said, Alger of Durmstrang can turn into a dog. The owners of rooms 1, 2, and 3 cannot turn into dogs. Room, is known to belong to Alvermorny. Elena, so Alger can only live in room 5. Isn't that all the others can be obtained through the method of elimination? Audrey lives in the second room. Ron shouted excitedly. Lu Ren quickly filled in the last vacancy. After deducing the result into the conditions, they found that it was correct, and immediately selected the potion that would allow them to move forward and back. The final derivation, will you little wizards know it? I will put the answer in the author's words at the end of the chapter. Oh, Harry took a step ahead, snatched the potion bottle that could move forward, and drank it all in one gulp. After drinking, he showed a bit of embarrassment. Sorry, I didn't expect that there was only one sip of potion left in it. Then his expression calmed down. Okay, you guys go back, hurry up and send a message to Dumbledore with an owl, and I will restrain Snape so that he cannot steal the Philosopher's Stone from Voldemort. Harriet is still absolutely certain that Snape is the one who wants to steal the Philosopher's Stone, even though the design of these levels has made Quirrell show his feet. The potion style of the logic puzzle level is really too strong, and it is almost a sign of thanks to Professor Snape for his efforts in this level, since Snape was in charge of this level. Whose level was that troll just now? Dumbledore. It must be Quirrell. Then the question comes, it is also a troll, is this thing related to the Halloween event? It's a pity that Harry and the others have been blinded and failed to think of this. Voldemort killed my parents when I was just born. The hatred between me and him cannot be resolved. Only when one of us is completely dead can this hatred be eliminated. So don't try to stop me, seeing that his friends were unwilling to leave. Harry had to explain to them. Besides, if I beat him once, I can beat him a second time. He pointed to his scar. Ron wanted to say something, but Hermione stopped him. Hermione looked at Harry for a while and understood his intention, so she directly opened another bottle of potion and took a sip. After entering the potion, Hermione shuddered. Good luck, you must come back alive. After she and Harry said this, they walked through the white flames and returned to the previous room without looking back. Ron also took a sip of the potion and left the room. We will notify Dumbledore as soon as possible. This is what he left behind. Lu Ren gently hugged Harry. I'm sorry, I left you to face all this alone. Be careful. Then he also took a sip of the potion. To his surprise, the potion was very, very spicy. Lu Ren felt his whole body burn up after drinking it. He turned his head through the white flames and left the room. The white flame didn't feel like a flame, but more like ice, bitingly cold. Fortunately, the antidote he drank brought heat, which kept Lu Ren's body warm, and he was able to return to the previous level unharmed. Without the protection of that potion, he might be frozen to death by the pale flame. Harry watched the 3 friends leave one after another, and he also mustered up the courage to walk into the purple flame and enter the last room. The 3 of Hermione were running forward desperately without looking back. They were really racing against time. When they ran to Professor McGonagall's checkpoint, they met Dumbledore, who was hurrying over. Professor. Harry, seeing Dumbledore, Hermione stretched out a healthy hand. Dumbledore nodded seriously, and then stretched his hands above his head. A big fiery red bird just broke through the void, and led him to fly to the final level as a ray of light. Ren and the others turned around and ran back without even breathing, and when they rushed to the ground again, everything was over, and Dumbledore was slowly walking up with the unconscious Harry in his arms. "Professor, we'll talk when we get back." Dumbledore stopped Hermione from asking, and then took Harry to the infirmary first. When Dumbledore arrived, Harry and Quirrell were rolling into a ball, and Voldemort's remnant soul had already taken the opportunity to escape. The spell called Love on Harry was too much for his dirty soul. It was too painful to bear. Dumbledore bent down and pulled Harry away from Quirrell. At this time, Quirrell had turned into fly ash, and checked Harry's body casually. After finding that nothing serious happened, Dumbledore also let go Tone. Back at the school hospital, Dumbledore handed Harry over to Madame Pomfrey. After everything settled down, he began to patiently answer Hermione's various questions. Ron couldn't intervene at all. Ren, it is almost no problem. Fortunately, Dumbledore was really good at dealing with students like Hermione. He calmed Hermione with just a few words and successfully sent her and Ron away. But he knew that the real troublemakers were behind. Sure enough, Ren deliberately lagged behind Hermione and the others, and got a chance to be alone with Dumbledore. "You saw through Quirrell's identity a long time ago, right?" Ren gently closed the door of the infirmary, and Madame Pomfrey outside the door would not allow Hermione and the others to come in again. "Yes," Dumbledore answered in the affirmative. "So you let the Dark Lord spend a semester at Hogwarts. He even fulfilled his dream of teaching defense against the dark arts." Dumbledore was silent. He did not answer Ren's words. "Let me just say, those traps under the trapdoor are too— how should I put it? It's a bit out of place. If I say it, I'm afraid it won't make others laugh. Hogwarts professors can— Did you come up with these tricks?" Ren said softly. "Why? Although I probably guessed it, I still want to get an answer from you." "Ren," Dumbledore said, with deep sadness in his eyes, "I am old, my strength is gradually declining, and he is accumulating strength, and he will make a comeback one day. I can't protect Harry all the time, and neither can you. Your strength is still far from enough. Some just right trials are necessary. At least the current risks are actually acceptable." Ren nodded. "Sure enough, maybe you are right." He put his hand on the doorknob and was about to leave, but he turned around and asked Dumbledore, "Professor, may I ask if this is the case? Behavior, is it for the greater good?" Then he twisted open the door and walked out quickly. "The answer is that if you want to go forward, you need the potion with Ilvermorny engraved on the bottle, and if you want to go back, you need Box buttons. The first half is reasoning. I was afraid of making it too boring, so I came to some interaction." End of this chapter. Chapter 154. The Godfather. Early the next morning, he accompanied Hermione and Ron to Harry's ward. Of course, obtaining Madame Pomfrey's consent was not an easy matter. They had to ensure that they would not make too much noise. Even so, their visiting time could not exceed a quarter of an hour. But when they opened the door of the ward with condolences, they were still surprised. A window on the inside of the ward was wide open, and there was already a person standing in the ward. The man was tall, with black hair that just hung down to his shoulders, and was wearing a tattered but high-end wizard robe. When he turned his head, Ren could see his dark gray pair of robes. There were still tears in his eyes. Ren just took a look and knew that the person in front of him was Sirius Black. The wizard in front of him fits the feeling of handsome middle-aged uncle in people's minds. Sirius should be of his own generation, that is, the most handsome of Harry's father's generation. Handsome, cheerful, and noble background, he often receives love letters. Compared with him, even James is almost embarrassed. Although he suffered nearly 11 years in Azkaban, traces of his handsomeness can still be seen from his face after returning to Grindelwald Square to recuperate for a period of time. Sirius' mental state is obviously much better than when he was just released from prison. Seeing a stranger standing in Harry's ward, Hermione immediately drew out her wand, and Sirius subconsciously wanted to escape through the window. "Stop it, he doesn't mean anything to Harry." Ren hurriedly lowered Hermione's wand so that she wouldn't hurt Sirius by mistake. When Sirius heard this, he also stopped, straddled the edge of the window and said, "I am Sirius Black." Ron opened his mouth in surprise when he heard this. Yes, he is Sirius, who was framed and imprisoned, and he is also Harry's godfather." Ren directly interrupted Ron, and threw a bomb, which made Ron speechless for a moment. Yes, because Fudge is unwilling to publicly rehabilitate Sirius, he is still wearing the guilt, but he can do activities outside. This also led to the vast majority of civilians in the magic world still thinking that Sirius was the culprit who killed the Potters. This is a very long story. Lawrence saw that both sides had calmed down, and then began to explain a little bit. It starts with a discovery made by Professor Dumbledore when he started school. Afterwards, Lawrence told Hermione and Ron the general story of the incident, but concealed the fact that Banban was Peter Pettigrew. He said it rashly. He was afraid that Ron would not be able to accept it all at once. After all, he slept with a naked middle-aged bald and wretched uncle for several years, and he might even kiss him often. Thinking about it differently, if I were Ron, I'm afraid I'd be so disgusted that I would travel to another world. So Lawrence only vaguely said that Dumbledore discovered that Peter Pettigrew was an unregistered animagus, and later successfully caught him. Hermione kept covering her mouth, tears almost welling up in her eyes. She didn't expect Harry's parents to have such a tragic past. Sirius also sighed. Things have passed, and Peter Pettigrew has also accepted the punishment, although it is 11 years late. I also look away, and now I just want to take care of Harry. It can be seen that Sirius seems to have become Buddhist after his revenge. Just when they wanted to continue chatting, the door of the ward was suddenly pushed open, and Madame Pomfrey poked her head in. You guys have talked about visiting for a long time. It's time to leave. Why are you opening the window? At this time, Sirius had already jumped the window and left with extremely sensitive movements, so fast that Madame Pomfrey didn't notice the abnormality. After leaving the school hospital, Lawrence went under the window of the school hospital and saw a series of paw prints leading to the Forbidden Forest. He looked at the Forbidden Forest and smiled. At noon, Lawrence walked into the Forbidden Forest with a big bag of food. He walked in for about tens of meters, and after the shade of the trees completely separated the sky from the outside world, he found a stone that was pleasing to the eye, cleaned the fallen leaves and moss on it, and then sat on it. He opened the package, and a tempting aroma came out at this moment. The bushes behind him trembled, Lawrence's ears moved slightly, and he locked on to the source of the sound. Come out and eat something together. Then a big sloppy black dog came out of the bushes, and then the black dog transformed into the handsome wizard who just walked through the window. Bull. He sat down on the ground, making the robe a little dirtier. That's right. There are also chicken legs and sausages. Lawrence took out a chicken leg, a pot of pumpkin juice and a small baguette from the bag, and passed a bag over. Thanks. Sirius opened the package, grabbed a piece of grilled steak, and put it in his mouth to chew. It's really hard for you. It's not easy to get food on weekdays. Lawrence sighed. Sirius is really a ruthless person. Of course, their group of predators is more ruthless than the other. Compared with Peter Pettigrew, Sirius seemed to be nothing and lurking at Hogwarts for half a term. It's okay. Sirius swallowed a beef in his mouth. I usually go to Hogsmeade for dinner. This face has not appeared in the public eye for more than 10 years, and no one who knows me too much. Housing is an issue, but the Screaming Shack is still there. Lawrence was taken aback, but then realized that although Sirius hadn't been rehabilitated, he wasn't wanted like in the original book. He could go to Hogsmeade to buy food without hesitation. Tell me, what do you want to do with me? I remember you wanted to come to me before. You are Harry's godfather, right? I heard that you are quite rich. And judging by your latent spirit, you should love Harry very much. Then you consider taking Harry to live with you during the holidays. Lawrence gave a small suggestion. He really didn't want to see Harry continue to live in the Dursleys' house, although the Dursleys met Harry's basic material needs. Of course, even this point is doubtful. Harry looked malnourished when he was a child, and the original book also said that the Dursleys would punish him with starvation. It is very likely that even basic material needs are not being met. Putting this point aside, the Dursley family's mental persecution of Harry is solid. His upbringing was by no means healthy. It could even be said to be miserable. In the original book, Harry once described that he hated Malfoy more than he hated Dudley. Why not let Harry move in with his godfather, given the chance? End of this chapter. Chapter 155 Child Support. Sirius paused while eating, and he seemed surprised. Would Harry really want to leave his uncle's house and live with me? Of course, he will be very happy. Lawrence was very sure that this was the best choice for Harry and the Dursleys. Great. Sirius almost jumped up excitedly, but after he was excited for a while, he began to think rationally about the feasibility of this matter. But Dumbledore seems to have said that Harry has the magic left by Lily can protect Harry so that the mysterious man cannot touch him. There seems to be a condition for this spell. It is true that the magic of love and Harry can protect him from being touched by Voldemort, but this spell will be broken under two conditions. Harry is of age, turned 17 years old, or he no longer manages for Privet Drive. That house is called home if he left and never came back. The spell would break when Harry stepped out of its range. Quite idealism, quite magic, can never be explained by science, and there is no need to use science to explain this kind of magic. Sirius also understood this curse. He had met Dumbledore briefly before, so now he had to consider how to balance the relationship between the two. He wanted Harry to come and live with him, but he didn't want to break the spell Lily left behind. This spell was quite useful, at least this time it saved Harry from Quirrell. So Sirius had an idea and came up with a loophole solution. I can let Harry come and live with me for a while, and then let him go back to his uncle's house for a while. If he really doesn't like it, his uncle's family, he can go on a trip with a few classmates. I'll show you around. What do you think? Lou Ren recalled a bit. Harry didn't live in the Dursleys' house for a full summer vacation when he was in the 2nd grade. He only stayed halfway through the 3rd grade and left. I can't remember clearly the 4th grade. The 5th grade was a Dementor, and then not full. So it is not necessary to stay in Privet Drive all the time during the summer vacation. Harry has enough freedom. Is there any difference between staying at Grindelwald Place and staying at the Leaky Cauldron and the Burrow? Not at all. Then there is no problem. Lou Ren agreed with Sirius' proposal. He was close to seeing the excited light in Sirius' eyes after negotiating these things. Lou Ren and Sirius ate up the food on the bag like a cloud. Animagus transformation had a great impact on Sirius, and he bit his bones like a dog. Lou Ren couldn't help being a little worried, and Sirius was also very sensitive to this. It's not good to eat, it makes you laugh. It's nothing. Lou Ren waved his hands again and again. I'm just curious, will Animagus transformation affect his living habits? Yes. Sirius agreed. This is the danger of Animagus transformation, and it is also the difficulty of this spell. Unlike transfiguration, Animagus transformation can retain the wizard's original consciousness, reasoning, and memory, but at the same time wizards have the brains of animals. They will unknowingly forget that they are a wizard, and thus be trapped unless another wizard transforms them back. Even if they become after returning, the habits of animals will be difficult to eliminate for a while, affecting normal life. So the Ministry of Magic ordered all Animagus wizards to report their transformed animals and their characteristics. It is also for easy finding, such as Professor McGonagall, who likes to turn into a cat. If she is trapped, the Ministry of Magic just look around for tabby cats with spectacle-like patterns around the eyes. Aren't you trying to practice Animagus transformation? Sirius became alert. It's like this. We have completed the initial preparations and are waiting for a thunderstorm. There was nothing to hide, and Lou Ren told Sirius their plan directly. Sirius whistled. You guys are much more fun than we were back then. Did you just say you? Lou Ren and the others were studying the transformation of Animagus, which was unexpected to Sirius. Of course, he was surprised by how quickly they had progressed. They were almost at the last step. Me, Hermione, Harry, Ron, and Malfoy. Lou Ren confessed quite frankly to the members of their organization. The speed of the confession was not even as fast as the surrender of France. Sirius raised his eyebrows when he heard Malfoy's name. I didn't expect that this year's Malfoy was not so boring. Remembered to report to the Ministry of Magic. Even though he hadn't reported it before, Sirius still had double standards and hoped that his juniors could report it. Lou Ren naturally agreed. Then, he remembered something, and said to Sirius, who was cleaning the oil on his hands, Sirius, are you super rich? Sirius paused. Think about it carefully. I am indeed quite rich. What's the matter? Am I short of money? He instinctively thought that the little wizard in front of him was in short supply and needed money. When I get home, get some for you. Money, it's really not a problem for me. Lou Ren would definitely not accept money from Sirius. It would be too hurtful. He asked this question mainly to try to improve Harry's living conditions at the Dursleys' house. You may be able to pay the Dursleys a sum of maintenance to thank them for their 11 years of raising Harry. Although it is not very qualified, the generous Sirius is still willing to give the Dursleys a sum. It is an extremely considerable wealth, and this money is used as compensation for Harry's expenses for the past 11 years and until he turns 17 in the future. Lou Ren proposed an idea to Sirius. Lou Ren felt that Harry's bad situation was not only caused by Uncle Vernon's distaste for the wizarding world, but also that he had lived in other people's homes for more than 10 years, and that Vernon's family had risked their lives theoretically raising him. It was said that there were Death Eater remnants trying to harm Harry. Of course, it's another matter if these remnants only surfaced in the 4th grade. Let's say you are a young leader with a wonderful family. You have a wife you love and a new baby son. One day, when you opened the door, you picked up a baby. He is the orphan of your most hated relative. You don't have a cent to adopt him, and you will also get into trouble with the craziest terrorist organization in the world that has disintegrated. Thinking about it this way, is it understandable for the Dursleys? After all, they really lost their home because of this in the 7th year, and were forced to hide in XZ for a while. Sirius fell into thinking. He suddenly felt that what Lou Ren said was quite reasonable. End of this chapter. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 156. Sirius is indeed not short of money. Although most of his property consisted of wizards' galleons, it was easy for him to acquire a large sum of pounds. He pondered for a while. How much should I pay? There was a similar situation. I remember that I gave 1,000 million yen. According to the exchange rate, you can give 1,000 pounds. Lou Ren searched his memory and remembered a similar example. Kudo Yukiko paid 20 million yen as Conan's boarding fee. Of course, Conan lived here for, years, but Sirius gave, 2, pounds, which is very interesting. By the way, remember to dress appropriately. Their family is more vain. Lou Ren continued to give the strategy. He believed that after such an operation, Harry's living situation would be much better. Of course, if Sirius could take care of Uncle Vernon and business, I'm afraid Vernon would confess Harry as the god of wealth. But my money is mainly galleons, and some real estate, antiques, and magic items. I really don't have many pounds. Sirius fell into deep thought. This is the first time he has spent money on money since he was a child. Things are difficult. Gringotts provides the service of exchanging galleons for British pounds, and you can also sell some antiques at home to muggles. Make sure there is no magic on them. Pounds are easy to buy. Lou Ren gave this person who has no economic sense Kuo Shao popularized the posture of the prodigal. With a background of the Black family, it is easy to come up with several million pounds. Leaving aside the exchange of galleons against British pounds, which will definitely lose money to Grandma's family, this thing is as unreliable as exchanging US dollar bills for gold bills. The Black family is one of the largest, oldest, and wealthiest pure-blood wizarding families in the UK. Their family history can be traced back to the Middle Ages. Such a family, would they not have some antique furniture? These furniture can be exchanged for money by throwing them at the auction house, and Sirius himself hated everything in that family, so he might as well sell them to his godson to improve his life. When talking about antiques, Lou Ren's eyes suddenly lit up. He suddenly found a shortcut to making money. Yes, the Room of Requirement. All the things hidden by Hogwarts students in the past are all inside, accumulated for thousands of years. Lou Ren only needs to take a small part of it to achieve financial freedom. Sirius, you should know about the Room of Requirement, right? Lou Ren rubbed his hands. Of course I know. Sirius also reacted, and he also showed a sly smile. See you at the Room of Requirement. He cleaned up the oil stains on his hands and the dirt on his robe, and then transformed into the big black dog again, and then he ran away without a trace. Lou Ren also tidied up a bit and rushed directly to the Room of Requirement. When he reached the 8th floor of Hogwarts, Sirius was already waiting for him outside. I didn't expect that your young wizards could really make a fuss. You started thinking about animagus in the 1st grade, and you discovered the Room of Requirement. Sirius praised Lou Ren as he walked back and forth in front of the empty wall. After he walked back and forth 3 times, the door of the Room of Requirement appeared. Aha! Sirius opened the door excitedly. Why didn't we think of it back then? We came here to hide things so many times, but didn't think about selling them. After stepping into the room and pulling Lou Ren in, he closed the door smoothly. Although he was mentally prepared, Lou Ren still took a deep breath when he stepped into the room. He couldn't help being amazed at the sight in front of him. He was in a room as big as the Basilica of St. Peter's Basilica. Although the entire room is huge, it looks extremely narrow. The objects are piled up like a hill, leaving only a very narrow passage for the entrance. These hills are all piled up of items hidden by Hogwarts students in the past. Over time, they have formed a city-like storage pile of contraband. We need to pick out antiques that have lost their magic power. Lou Ren swallowed, and carefully walked past a pile of crumbling and broken furniture. These furniture are often the foundation of the hill. Furniture moved here. Lu Ren speculated that after the furniture was emptied, some weird contraband or criminal evidence could be found inside. Of course, it might have been stuffed in by house elves, because these rags actually affected the dignity of the castle. But here you can really experience the joy of the trash guy. There are thousands of books, winged slingshots and maces, several of which have not yet dissipated their magic, medicines, hats, jewels, cloaks, things that looked like dragon eggshells, and weapons like rusty swords and a blood-stained axe. As long as you have enough eyesight, you can dig endless treasures from here. Lu Ren obviously didn't have enough vision, but Sirius was a player. The word player does not refer to the kind of player in the game, but BJ's word, which refers to the kind of person who is obsessed with and proficient in certain utensils. The pronunciation is player. Speaking of players from the non-magic world, the one who is probably second to none is Mr. Wang Shixiang from the Central Plains. This old gentleman, born in 1914, calligraphy and painting, sculpture, cooking, architecture, raising pigeons, cricket fighting, growing gourds. All kinds of strange things are omnipotent, and he does everything for the protection and recovery of cultural relics and the preservation of traditional culture. Made a lot of contributions. Sirius is definitely not the #1 player in the magic world, but he is definitely able to afford the phrase well-informed from a famous family. In addition, he really loved playing when he was young, so he can barely be regarded as a player at this time. He was carefully distinguishing the things in the garbage dump. Lu Ren also had his own considerations. He took a look at these collections. First of all kinds of books could not be sold, although it is not impossible if it is the kind of book that talks about gods and gods in the Middle Ages. It is not impossible to auction it as an antique of occultism, but the risk is too great because the things taught by this thing are likely to be true. Those who are interested in occultism, those who can kill each other, it's better not to let them get in touch with real guys. Then there are potions and magic items that move, which are too dangerous as for the remains of various creatures. They have no economic value and cannot be sold. So Lu Ren focused on those armors and swords. While Sirius and Lu Ren were playing garbage hunters, Gryffindor Quidditch team captain Wood's hair was graying. Their only seeker, Harry, was injured and hospitalized. They didn't have a seeker for the Ravenclaw match. Glossary: progeneration refers to the generation of Harry's father. Subgeneration refers to the people of Harry's generation. Although everyone calls each other dad in the boys' dormitory, the main characters are obviously the children. By the way, after a long absence, please ask for a recommendation ticket and a monthly pass. End of this chapter. Chapter 157. Trying to become a black-haired demon soaring in the sky. Stop frowning, come and have a drink. Angelina poured a glass of Gemini brand rice wine for the decadent wood. Among the wines made by Fred and George, this sweet low-alcohol rice wine is the most popular. Welcome everyone. It has already occupied most of the sales of Twin Winery, and out of the 10 pots of wine sold, 8 pots are rice wine. Wood drank the wine in the glass, and then threw the glass heavily on the ground. There are no seekers, so what should we do? We have clearly seen the hope of defeating Slytherin, but I'm not reconciled. It can't be blamed that Wood didn't prepare a substitute seeker. The 4 college Quidditch teams in Hogwarts are all one virtue. Understaffed with so few newcomers joining every year, it is undoubtedly difficult to absorb new blood. This time Gryffindor's opponent, Ravenclaw, has not had a male player for several years in a row except for the captain Roger. In fact, it's still pretty good now. After a few years, the new generation of Gryffindor's Quidditch team will decline even more when Harry succeeded Angelina as the captain of Quidditch. Some of the young wizards who signed up for the Quidditch selection had no flying experience. Of course, since Quidditch is an extremely popular sport, the number of applicants is still large enough. Nearly 50 people came to Harry's audition, although there were a few Hufflepuffs and Ravenkies mixed in. Law's junior students. But that selection also caused great mental torture to Harry. Some people couldn't fly, some girls came for Harry completely, and many people fell into pieces after flying halfway around the court heap. It's hard to imagine how Wood has survived all these years. Maybe the source of students in the past few years was more reliable. And no matter which college, maybe Hufflepuff's situation is not so serious. The backbone of Quidditch is the young wizards from wizarding families. After all, the young Muggle-born wizards have never played Quidditch before going to school. It is undoubtedly difficult for them to fly in the sky on broomsticks and compete in competition in just 1 year. Those children from wizarding families are different. They have been influenced by their ears and eyes since they were young. They can be said to be children from good families and skilled in bowing and horses. They are the best source of students. For example, in Harry's team, Ginny's performance is crushing for others. This is also the reason why the Slytherin team is particularly strong. Without him, only Dole. Seeing that Wood had been sluggish, Angelina had an idea. Actually, don't we have an alternative? Luren is also quite talented. Let him play and try. He has also been training with us for a semester. Wood thought about it, and it seemed that there was no better choice, so he could only make a bitter face and decided to let Luren go to the dead horse as a living horse doctor. How high-spirited we predators were in the past, but now we are reduced to garbage pickers. Sirius sighed, obviously having a new understanding of the saying that life is impermanent. Then he picked up a two-handed sword that was shining with a cold light. The little wizard back then was really full of martial arts. He would bring this kind of thing to school. It was hard for me to carry it. It was probably from the 19th century. My family had put similar. Luren touched the blade lightly, and looked at the clean sword body. A two-handed sword in such good condition can be sold for at least a few £1,000s. This is because this sword is considered modern. With the excavation of the remains, more and more good things gradually increased. Luren even dug up a bronze sword and several porcelain vases with the characteristics of the Central Plains. Good guy, life is getting more and more judgmental. Luren was full of emotion, and put the bronze sword back to its original place. Buying and selling bronze wares is illegal, and selling bronze wares abroad is even more sinful. This sword is enough for him to go in and squat for 4 years and 5 years. This is because the bronze sword is not in good condition. As for the few porcelain vases, there was no signature on the bottom, so it was impossible to tell which dynasty they belonged to. Luren planned to take them out for appraisal, and sold the ones that were not very precious, and donated the precious ones at a chance. Soon, he and Sirius picked out a bunch of antiques suitable for auction and piled them in a corner. After deciding on a strategy, they quietly left the room of requirement. Sirius went to rest in his screaming hut, and Luren returned to the Gryffindor common room. What? Luren couldn't believe his ears. You said that I was a substitute chaser. How could I become the starting chaser? But Wood had already decided to let Luren be the seeker. Luren couldn't help it. He missed 2 lines of poems on the spot, but was interrupted by Wood directly. He wanted to train Luren for special training. So that night, Luren limped back to his dormitory, where he was severely drilled by Wood, and early the next morning, he will face the Ravenclaw Quidditch team with other players. Soon, the final Quidditch final officially began in the middle of the Quidditch field. Looking at the Quidditch team where only Captain Davis Roger is a boy and the other 6 players are all girls, Luren suddenly had a bold idea. It seems that there is no requirement for a seeker. You can't touch the bludger with your hands, right? Then I accidentally touched the bludger, and then the ball accidentally bounced on the opponent's body. Should it be considered a foul? This idea is quite bold, but the side effects are also obvious. If Luren really blows the Ravenclaw team from the sky with bludgers, then he will lose the right to choose a spouse for the next 6 years, at least in Ravenclaw. The right to choose a spouse in the law school. But, for the sake of the Quidditch Cup, what is this grievance? This is for the greater good. He covered his mouth and shared his thoughts with Wood, but Wood just looked at him for a while with the eyes of a fool, and then patted him on the shoulder, saying that Luren should not be under too much pressure, and if he is mentally abnormal, he can check with Madame Pomfrey after the game. Luren was unconvinced on the spot. Today I will show you what a black-haired demon soaring in the sky of Hogwarts is. Everyone, get on your broom. With Mrs. Hooch's whistle, the race started. The red quaffle was thrown into the air by Madame Hooch before it was snatched by Gryffindor chaser Katie Bell, sparking a cheer from the Gryffindor camp in the stands. With Lee Jordan with passionate commentary, Gryffindor played a beautiful opening offensive and successfully scored within 10 seconds of the start. Next, the Ravenclaw team's counterattack was also extremely quick. Their pride made them unwilling to play a tacit match with a Gryffindor in this game and play Slytherin to death. The Ravenclaw batsman volleyed a bludger vigorously towards Luren. To everyone's surprise, Luren didn't show any intention of dodging. He just calmly watched the flying away from him. The black ball, which was getting closer, stretched out his left hand, or. End of this chapter. Chapter 158. The Demon with Broken Wings. Boom. There was a burst of exclamation from the audience. Luren was directly pushed back by the bludger for a distance of about 3 meters, and his arm was directly deformed by the whip. Luren? Exclamation mark. Why, I have obviously strengthened my strength with runes. Wood quickly called a timeout, and the game was suspended at the whistle of Mrs. Hoochwood hurriedly helped Lou Wren go to Madame Pomfrey to treat the injured arm. It seems that Mr. Lou Wren doesn't know that the bludger has the characteristic of being strong when it meets strong. It's a big loss. Jordan's mouth was like a machine gun, and he quickly explained to the little wizards present, who were a little confused cause of the situation. It turned out that this scene was caused by the characteristics of the bludger. Quidditch is a sport with a long history, and in its long history, there have indeed been wizards who have played tricks and tried to end the game with sideways methods such as using bludgers to hit the opponent, and this is indeed feasible, because although wizards with magical animal blood are not very common, they do exist in the world, such as giant hybrids, Vela hybrids, and so on. The power of bludgers against normal wizards is not so strong against them. Of course, it was a mixed-race Vela who changed everything. She shot down the entire opposing team by herself. This caused an uproar. Then the next day, the Quidditch Committee of the International Federation of Wizards came up with a trick, which was to cast a spell on the bludger. If the force received exceeds a threshold, the impact of the bludger will suddenly increase several times or even dozens of times. This threshold is the upper limit of the power of ordinary human beings. If it exceeds this power, it means that there must be something wrong with this wizard. Either the blood is mixed with medicine, or the blood is mixed with other blood. Since then, no wizard has tried to break the trick with strength. Unexpectedly, today's famous scene was reproduced by Lou Wren. Listening to the explanation on the commentary platform, Lou Wren couldn't help but feel speechless. Sure enough, this kind of movement that has lasted for hundreds of years is unlikely to be found by him to find loopholes in the rules. When Lou Wren was receiving treatment, Jordan also showed his quality of professional commentary. Lee Jordan quickly explained the ins and outs of the matter to the little wizards in the auditorium, and then his mouth did not stop. The original Gryffindor lineup is recognized as the best in Hogwarts in recent years. The lineup of the team, he had just said this, but was drowned out by boos from the Slytherin side. Then Jordan raised his voice and continued shouting at the top of his voice, "They have the beautiful and powerful chasers Johnson and Spinnet, the extremely talented Bell, the once-in-a-century genius Seeker Porter, Hog. What's best batsman combination, the Weasley brothers and the goalkeeper Wood, who is known as the Wall of Size. They can be called brilliant generals. Their opponents are Ravenclaw College, and I only know Captain Roger. It hurts. Professor, I was wrong." Professor McGonagall couldn't stand it anymore, and directly hit Jordan's head with a hellburial hand knife. "If you talk nonsense again, I will punish you." It is generally believed that the Gryffindor team has declined since Charlie Weasley retired, but this is not the case. Of course, I do not deny that the current Gryffindor team is not complete. Their seeker Harry Potter was hospitalized, and he was replaced by this year's rookie Lou Wren. He has not participated in the competition before, he just trained with the team, and judging by his actions just now, he lacks understanding and common sense of Quidditch. However, according to Gryffindor's Captain Wood, Lou Wren's talent is also particularly outstanding. Of course, I haven't seen it yet, but I sincerely hope that today and next year, this young player can contribute wonderful performances. Jordan's comments became a little fairer, and Professor McGonagall showed satisfaction. After Lou Wren finished his treatment, the game continued. Because we'd called a timeout, Ravenclaw got a serve. After a series of exquisite cooperation, they successfully scored the ball into Gryffindor's goal. Now the two sides are tied. Wood's face sank, and now he doesn't think about other things anymore, he just wants to play the game well in front of him. He threw the quaffle hard. Gryffindor was holding the ball, and Alias Spinnet took the quaffle and headed straight for the Slytherin goal. Oops. Roger snatched the quaffle. "Roger, captain of Ravenclaw dancing with the ball, I'm going." "Good bludger by Fred. Hope Roger's okay." He dropped the quaffle and it's back in Gryffindor's hands now. "Angelina, beautiful feint. Watch out for the bludger, beautiful. She's like a petrel in a storm. She's shot, the ball is saved, never mind, Spinnet makes it, again, Bell!" Exclamation mark. It was Bell. She made another contribution and scored the second goal. Bell, 20-10, the Gryffindor team temporarily leads. Bell, who scored twice, glided around the court, raised his fist and waved it twice, and the Red Sea of Gryffindor below also set off a wave of fluctuations. "A goalie can block one shot, two shots, but they always shoot," Jordan added. "Offense is the best defense." The game continues. Now if Lou Wren can catch the snitch, the game will be over, but Gryffindor can only be ranked second. Jordan frantically hinted in his words that Lu-Ren would never be able to catch the snitch. Now this is the same as losing. There is no essential difference in the game. Gryffindor needs to beat Ravenclaw by a big score in order to surpass Slytherin in both points and win the Academy Cup. This big score means that after removing the golden snitch, they still have a point lead. He knew that although it was outrageous, today's game still had to bet on Lu-Ren. A rookie playing for the first time has a heavy responsibility. Not only must he catch the snitch, but he must also catch the snitch when Gryffindor leads by 30 points. This is really too difficult. Eagle formation. Jordan yelled, and the three Gryffindor chasers galloped close together, Angelina in the middle, Belle and Ellie a little ahead of her, which was their new training. Using tactics, the three approached the Ravenclaw team together. Then, Jordan exclaimed, "Boss of tactics." They secretly practiced so many tricks. Angelina pretended to charge up with a quaffle, and Ravenclaw's chaser also follow her up, and then she throws the ball to Belle, who has been very good in this game. Belle quickly shrank down after getting the ball, dodged the flying bludger, and threw the quaffle at the same time. Belle, who had already flown below them and hovered, caught the ball. Belle scored. Jordan roared, and the Gryffindor stands were filled with cheers, shaking the entire Quidditch pitch. 30 hours, and 10 minutes, Gryffindor leads by 20 points. End of this chapter. Chapter 159 Wronski's Feint. In the next few minutes, the game became intense. The batsmen of the Gryffindor team were superb. The two brothers cooperated seamlessly and their movements were very coordinated. Under the cover, Gryffindor had the upper hand, and they were attacking frantically. Ravenclaw's weakness is obvious. This team is skilled, but they are afraid of physical collisions. This is why it is difficult for them to match Gryffindor and Slytherin. These two teams are fierce and dirty, and they are a headache for a delicate team like Ravenclaw. In the next 10 minutes, Gryffindor scored 2 more goals, pulling the point difference to 40 points. The point difference narrowed to 30 points. At this time, Lu-Ren, who was circling at the top of the field, suddenly began to dive, and at the same time stretched out his right hand, as if to grab something. Ravenclaw's seeker couldn't just sit idly by, although she didn't see the snitch at all, but followed suit. Both seekers were falling fast, like jumping out of a plane without a parachute. Falling quickly, they easily dodged the bludgers hit by the batter and left behind other players who tried to interfere. "They're going to fall," Hermione yelled in panic. But she was only half right. At the last moment, Lu-Ren changed the direction of his broom, let it fly into the sky, narrowly missed the ground, and the tail of his broom even brushed the grass on the ground, and even the broom with him shook violently, almost throwing him off it. The Ravenclaw seeker Anya Shepherd, who had been following him, was not so lucky. She was blocked by Lu-Ren and couldn't see where the snitch was going. She just followed Lu-Ren blindly. Ren is behind in her subconscious mind. Lu-Ren must be trying so hard to catch the snitch. In the end, Lu-Ren turned his head successfully, but she rushed to the ground before she had time. There was a bang, which was clearly heard throughout the Quidditch pitch, and everyone let out an exclamation. Fake move. Lu-Ren made a fake move. The game is suspended. Jordan shouted, holding the microphone. Madame Pomfrey and Madame Hooch rushed into the arena to check on Anya's injuries under the huge impact. She passed out directly at the same time. Lu-Ren seized the time to search for the snitch undisturbed. His action just now was extremely risky, and he would get into it if he didn't make it right, but luckily he succeeded. At this time, Madame Pomfrey fed Anya some drinks and cast a spell to wake her up. She asked Anya how she felt. Although it was reasonable for her to end immediately, Anya still insisted. Continuing the game, Madame Pomfrey saw that she was determined and did not stop her, so, about 3 minutes later, Anya got on the broom again and jumped into the air. At this time, a golden light flashed in the corner of Lu-Ren's eyes, and he saw the snitch under a doorpost in Gryffindor. He glanced back at Anya again, and found that she was in a normal state, shaking her head slightly, so he turned the broom directly and flew towards the doorpost quickly. Anya was stunned for a moment, but still caught up immediately. Lu-Ren could feel hundreds of pairs of eyes on him. He was flying around the field at high altitude, and Anya speeded up to catch up at the same time. Fred also hit the bludger at Anya, hoping to distract her, but she dodged it lightly. Ravenclaw's chaser ran directly towards Lu-Ren, but was also dodged by Lu-Ren lightly flicking his broom. She passed by Lu-Ren, and Lu-Ren could even smell the perfume on her body taste. Ravenclaw's meat bomb attack was obviously effective. Anya managed to catch up, and the two flew side by side. Now she also saw the position of the snitch. she and Lu Ren started a fierce body collision. Knees often bumped into each other, and if Lu Ren squeezed her hard, she would bump back mercilessly. To be honest, Lu Ren had never had such a road collision with a girl before. His heart was pounding wildly, not because of physical contact with a girl, but because the snitch was just a few feet away from the two of them. Lu Ren wished he could standing on the broom. Of course he didn't do this. He leaned forward, let go of the broom with both hands, blocked Anya's arm with his left arm, and stretched out his right hand, caught. He could feel the snitch struggling desperately in his hand, and that feeling was a little disgusting, as if he had pinched a big bug, such as a dragonfly, in his hand. But he still suppressed the discomfort, straightened up, raised his right hand in the air. The audience was boiling, but Lu Ren seemed to be able to hear only the buzzing of the snitch. He won the game. After landing on the ground, Wood rushed over and hugged him. The sweat-soaked jersey stuck to Lu Ren's body directly, making him feel like he was about to die, and then the smell of sweat rushed into his nose. Although it was very unpleasant, Lu Ren still wanted to cast a repelling spell to push Wood away. Wood was followed by Brother Fred, followed by the voices of Angelina, Aaliyah and Katie, who yelled, "We are the champions." 200-20. Congratulations to Gryffindor for winning this game, and also won the Quidditch Cup this school year. Jordan jumped up and down in the commentary excitedly, and Professor McGonagall next to him tried his best to hide himself joy, but the corners of her mouth were still upturned crazily. She now felt that there was only one fly in the ointment. It was a pity that it was not the Slytherin team that had been defeated. The Slytherins were extremely depressed, like frost-beaten eggplants, keeping their heads down and not speaking. After losing the Quidditch Cup, their Academy Cup might also be lost. Marcus shouted angrily, "RNM, fake match. I am so disappointed." At this time, the Gryffindor players had already hugged into a ball, and everyone except Lu Ren was shouting hoarsely. Lu Ren was about to be fainted by the smell of sweat at this moment. There is only one thought in his mind now: how great it would be if you were a Ravenclaw player. When he first came into contact with it, those few bursts of fragrance made him very unforgettable. Soon, a torrent of red flooded the pitch, and the Gryffindors surrounded the Quidditch team of 7 in the chaos. Lu Ren only felt that the pressure was lightened, and Wood's smell of sweat seemed to go away, and then he and other players were picked up by the crowd, and they were thrown into the air. All the Gryffindors were jumping up and down like crazy, with absolutely no regard for decency. Professor McGonagall finally lost control of her expression management, and she couldn't stop crying. She quickly picked up a big Gryffindor flag and wiped away the tears. Ron and Hermione were trying to squeeze towards Lu Ren. They were so excited that they couldn't speak. They just looked at him and smiled. Gryffindor finally became the Quidditch champion again after 5 years. The wild celebration finally spread to the Gryffindor common room, and it didn't end until all 7 players on the field were drunk. End of this chapter. Chapter 160. The Wrath of the Phoenix. Early the next morning, Lu Ren got up from the bed in a daze. The little wizards in the same dormitory were still asleep, and they celebrated until late at night yesterday. For Gryffindor, winning the Quidditch Cup again after 5 years was great news, and it was totally worth celebrating wildly, not to mention that the final exam is over, and they have no reason to go to bed on time. Lu Ren stepped past an empty wine bottle and half of a leftover cake and came to the common room. The environment here is much cleaner. It should be cleaned by an elf. He came to the corridors, wanting to take a walk in the castle, and then visit Harry. During the carnival yesterday, Ron leaked their adventures, which made him the focus of attention of the young wizards. As soon as this adventure was revealed, it spread throughout the school. Lu Ren estimated that there would be many people visiting Harry today. It would be better for him to go there early and leave as soon as he put down the condolences. Just as he was thinking about what to choose as a condolence gift, a red light flashed in the corridor, and Lu Ren felt as if he had been slapped on the head by something. He looked up, and an angry bird's face appeared in front of him in the field of vision. "Fox, why did Fox run out of the principal's office? Why did it hit me?" Lu Ren's small eyes were full of great confusion. He looked at Fox innocently, and Fox was so angry that he rolled his eyes, and then slapped Lu Ren's arm. Accompanied by the severe pain, Lu Ren understood something, and hurried to Dumbledore's office. Then he was stopped by the gargoyle at the door. Dumbledore changed the password. But this time Lu Ren didn't need to take the usual route, because Fox brought Lu Ren directly into the office. After entering the office, all Lu Ren saw was a large orange-yellow unknown object and the chewing sound of broken bones. Lu Ren? Then he took a closer look. Why is this orange-yellow thing so familiar? Damn, this is my little fat tiger. Lu Ren was shocked. How do you make me believe that the thing as big as Dumbledore's chair in front of me is my little tiger? In fact, Lu Ren lacked a basic understanding of the growth rate of the cubs. He was not to blame for that. Most people had never raised tigers before. In his eyes, a tiger cub is just like a kitten. At most it will grow to the size of a golden retriever in a year, but in fact, tigers grow extremely fast. Lu Ren's tiger cub is almost 1 year old. 1 year old is equivalent to 4 to 8 years of human beings. Lu Ren fell asleep before, but it is obvious that he is awake now. The current fat tiger is nearly 1 meter long, and it can already throw Lu Ren to the ground for fun. Hearing a strange sound, Fat Tiger reluctantly raised his head. It was eating deliciously, but when it saw the visitor, it stood up in surprise, and the half-eaten chicken fell out of its mouth. Moo! It made a very strange sound, which sounded a bit like a cow's cry, and then jumped on Lu Ren, knocking Lu Ren over. Then it hugged Lu Ren and used its pink tender. His little tongue kept licking Lu Ren's face. Although the tongues of felines have barbs, they can put the barbs away. If someone is licked by their own cat, it means that the cat did it on purpose. Lu Ren, Greek letter sigma, degree Cyrillic letter de degree. First of all, why did the tiger make a bull call? Second, this guy came to lick my face just after eating raw chicken. Finally, this guy is really heavy. Lu Ren had no choice but to use the rune once to lift the kitten, which was already obviously overweight, and then stood up. You came. Lu Ren heard the familiar voice, looked back, and saw Dumbledore standing at the door of the office with 2 chickens, with a complicated expression on his face. This little guy woke up this morning. The sleep period has starved him to death, and he has been eating until now. Dumbledore threw the fluffed chicken in his hand to Lu Wu. He swooped down, grabbed one, held one with his paw, and then began to chew. You've got to pick it up, Fox is pissed. Lu Ren rubbed his forehead, feeling a little dizzy. An adult tiger is at least 2 meters long and weighs a few hundred catties. This little guy doesn't seem suitable to be kept in his dormitory anymore, but its location is also simple. Gryffindor still has several disused dormitories. Lu Ren can directly raise Fat Tiger in one of the rooms. After discussing with Dumbledore for a while, Lu Ren reserved a long-abandoned dormitory in the Gryffindor Tower as the little tiger's residence, and after finding a collar for the little fat tiger to wear, Lu Ren said goodbye Dumbledore, back to Gryffindor Tower, and Dumbledore also began to sit at his desk and start working. He needed to determine the list of students who would come to Hogwarts to study abroad next semester, and write a draft of the final summary. By the way, next term, Hogwarts will try to admit 1 or more students from other countries. There is no future for staying in the 3 islands of England. Trying to absorb talents from other regions is the way out, but at the same time, we must also pay attention to not conflict with other magic schools, and not to go to other people's sites to grab students. Honestly, it's pretty easy to do because the enrollment boundaries between schools are actually not very clear, and there is no clear rule not to apply for other schools. Generally, young wizards will choose the nearest magic school to study, but with the consent of the students' parents, they can also study in other schools a little further away. For example, Draco Malfoy almost went to study in Durmstrang in his first year. Durmstrang is a school that prefers cross-border enrollment. The students enrolled in Beauxbreton in France are not only from France, Spain, Portugal, Luxembourg, Belgium and the Netherlands are all its students. In the past, Hogwarts only recruited students from the British Isles because all the students written by the magic pen came from this area. They never had any ancestral precepts that they should not admit students from outside the UK. For example, this year, Lu Ren's name was written in the quill, and they admitted Lu Ren. Dumbledore, who had been thinking for a while at the desk, suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He remembered a family that had lived in seclusion in France for a long time, and he had a good relationship with the patriarch of that family. How old is the little granddaughter of the Grellet family? Dumbledore scratched his head. If he was old enough, he could invite the deceased's granddaughter to study at Hogwarts. Without further ado, Dumbledore spread out a roll of parchment, picked up a quill from the table, dipped it in ink, and started writing the letter. At this time, Lu Ren had already returned to the dormitory. Ask for a recommendation ticket. End of this chapter. Chapter 161. Obviously I came first. There are 2 doors in the common room that lead to different spiral stairs, one of which leads to the girls' dormitory and the other to the boys' dormitory. Lu Ren looked for the direction and walked up the spiral staircase leading to the boys' dormitory. Doors appeared one after another along the stairs, and behind the doors was the bedroom of the little lions. The impatient little lions don't like the boring process of climbing stairs very much, so the top few bedrooms are always vacant. Lu-Ren tried his best to pull Fat Tiger away from the door of his dormitory. This guy already knows the way, and he can be regarded as a little tiger who knows the way. He stretched out his claws, and with a tug, opened the door. Lu-Ren, I think it's time for this tiger to go to college, so don't delay the child. The little wizards in the room still slept like dead pigs, but the sound of the door still alarmed a little life, and Lu-Ren's little unicorn poked its head out from under Lu-Ren's bed. Fat Tiger? Exclamation mark. Dad has a new kid? Exclamation mark. How dare it sleep on my bed? And the new kid is actually a snack. Yes, in the eyes of Fat Tiger Lu-Wu, the little unicorn in front of him is nothing more than a golden foal, and a golden horse is also the food of the tiger clan. As long as they are herbivores, we tigers can eat them all. Of course, as a cub who has never seen the world, Lu-Wu has never seen a unicorn, so it can be regarded as a newborn tiger cub is not afraid of a unicorn. Fat Tiger put his hind legs together, squatted at the door of the dormitory like a stone lion, and then let out a loud meow. Meow. Obviously I came first, moo-moo. How does it live in my bed and use my cat bag? Meow woo-woo. It's fine if you keep other pets outside. How dare you bring it home, Lu-Ren? Since you are looking for excitement, then follow through to the end. Of course, he didn't dare to say the words in his heart, for fear of irritating the big fat dumpling in front of him. Or Maoan, start. Lu-Ren stretched out his hands, picked up the fat tiger, moved it away from the door of the room, closed the door of the dormitory, and left with a cursing little tiger in his arms. The little unicorn couldn't figure it out, and after looking at it for a while, it shrank back to sleep and went back to the cage. Lu-Ren hugged Fat Tiger and came to a closed door. He put the little tiger down gently, then took out a key and opened the locked door. What you can see is the layout of the Gryffindor-style dormitory, but there is a layer of dust on the floor of the 6 beds in the dormitory. Only a bare bed frame remained, with overlapping spider webs hanging from it. Fortunately, the windows of the room were not sealed, and there was basically no mildew in the corners, and the house elves of Hogwarts were also very responsible to clean up all kinds of magical animals in the castle. At least in Gryffindor you can't see all kinds of strange and magical creatures in the tower. Otherwise, this kind of house in the magic world that has been vacant for many years will definitely breed a lot of magical animals. When Fat Tiger saw it being brought into such an environment, he immediately stood up angrily, and then punched Meow. You actually let me live in this kind of place? I misread you. Unmoved, Lu-Ren calmly drew out his magic wand. Clean up XN. Clean up the dormitory. This is the spell he learned when raising Noble this semester, and it is very practical, but he couldn't understand, where did the clean dust go? Then he thought about it. Maybe the dust turned into the energy consumed by the casting of the spell. Lu-Ren speculates that the essence of the spell is to use magic power to completely decompose the dirt, and then use the energy released during this process to continue to decompose the next wave of dirt. After the magic power is exhausted, the reaction stops, and the excess energy is expressed in the form of wind, so a small whirlwind is formed. Theoretically, digging deeper into this curse could have an astonishingly lethal effect, but with Lu-Ren's current level, it is still beyond his capabilities. After cleaning up the dormitory, Lu-Ren went to hug it clean bedding, spread it for the little fat tiger, then put the angry little fat man in, and finally came a pat to kill. Fat Tiger, don't think you can bribe me like this. Wait a minute, don't stop, go up a little bit. Yes, that's the position. Am I your dearest baby? Lu-Ren, that's right, you will always be my big baby, my favorite tiger boo darling. He first combed the fat tiger's fur, then stretched out his hand to scratch its chin, and soon gained weight. The tiger let out a satisfied grunt. Finally, Fat Tiger fell asleep satisfied with Lu-Ren's touch. Lu-Ren couldn't help but heaved a sigh of relief. It can be regarded as appeasement, and it is very troublesome for a hairy child to be jealous, but fortunately, they are simpler and easier to coax. Thinking about it this way, Lu-Ren felt that he was a scumbag, because besides the unicorn, he also raised a dragon outside. After Fat Tiger fell asleep, Lu-Ren tiptoed out of the house. He was going to Hagrid's cabin next. Norbert's bond with him was close enough that he decided it was time to make a pact with Norbert. As for the Fat Tiger, Lu-Ren planned to learn how to make the shrinking potion from Professor Snape in the future. Fat Tiger usually lives in the dormitory as a cub, and it will return to its original size when it is taken out for a walk. This kind of potion is not difficult to prepare, and the little wizards will come into contact with it in the 2nd grade. Of course, the official preparation will have to wait until the 3rd grade. Soon, Luren arrived at Hagrid's cabin. The rising sun had just dispelled the early morning mist, and the door of Hagrid's hut was open. Hagrid was sitting in the yard, his eyes glowing red. At his feet was a large wooden bucket full of dead rats, Norbert's breakfast. In addition to the wooden barrel, there was a wooden stake in front of him with a book and several bulging envelopes on it. Seeing Luren approaching, Hagrid raised his head, wiped his eyes with his hands, and forced a smile. "Why are you here so early? Are you going to feed Norbert? I just got ready for a day. Bucket of fresh rats." "Hagrid, you are really serious. Norbert is not young anymore. He can go hunting in the Forbidden Forest by himself. If you continue to raise it like this, it will become a fat house." Luren complained half-truthfully. "Hey, it's still a baby. Let's think about these things when it grows up a bit." Hagrid sighed. "By the way, it's so early, you haven't had breakfast yet? Would you like some ferret sandwiches?" With that said, he was about to get up and go get Luren something to eat. Luren quickly stopped him. "Thank you, but there's really no need. I celebrated very late last night, and I have no appetite this morning. By the way, what is this book?" He noticed the book in front of Hagrid. After a closer look, I found that it was a photo album with a very beautiful cover. End of this chapter. Chapter 162. Are you my master? It's okay not to mention this, but with a photo album in front of him, Hagrid's tears couldn't stop falling down like a string of beads. "It's all, blame me, this idiot." Hagrid tried to wipe away the tears with his hands, but the tears wiped away more and more. "I revealed the way to get through Fluffy. I told him myself. Harry and you almost died. I will never drink again." Luren quickly comforted Hagrid for a while. "It's nothing, he is such a powerful dark wizard, it's only a matter of time before he finds out how to pass the three-headed dog, and it's not your fault." After crying for a while, Hagrid gradually subsided. He took out a huge handkerchief, wiped his nose, and let out a trumpet-like voice. "By the way, you asked me about the photo album. Dumbledore gave it to me one day off. I sent an owl to Harry's parents' old classmates, asking for pictures of Lily and James. I heard Harry didn't even have a picture of them. Do you think Harry would like it?" Luren looked at the bulging envelope on the stake, and took a deep breath. "This is the best gift for Harry." Then, Luren also sat down. "Let me tidy up with you." "Right. Do you think it's better to arrange photos by timeline or by people?" Afterwards, Luren spent a whole morning sorting out the photos with Hagrid. By the time he tucked the last photo into the album, the sun was already directly above their heads. "Okay, this is the last one." Luren handed the thicker photo album to Hagrid. "Thank you. If I'm alone, I don't know how much time it will take. This photo album is still a bit small for me. By the way, I seem to have forgotten something." "Me too? What is it?" The two looked at the wooden barrel with a faint smell of blood. "Noble. X2 Norbert was furious today. The stupid Twaligs didn't deliver a delicious breakfast to the great Mr. Norbert on time, and it's almost time for lunch. Noble considered this mistake to be inexcusable, but as a quality dragon, Norbert did not choose to be incompetent and furious, and set fire to the house, but just silently huddled by the fire and waited. Fortunately, the fire has not been extinguished." When Luren and Hagrid came in with a bucket of rats in a panic, Nob raised his head in a jerk, and then pumped the floor with his big tail in dissatisfaction. There were 2 puffs of smoke. Hagrid showed a flattering smile and handed the mouse to it. Norbert gave the two of them a blank look, then stuck his head into the barrel, and then there was a crunching sound coming from the barrel. At this time, Norbert is almost half the size of a room. It is now more than 3 meters long, and its head is as big as a school bag. A bucket of mice is just enough to fit between its teeth. Hagrid was already collecting all kinds of animal offal that the school didn't need to fill his bottomless stomach. All the bacon and jerky that used to hang in Hagrid's hut were gone. They were all being fed to the dragons. Even if Luren didn't say anything, Hagrid would put Norbert in the Forbidden Forest to hunt him after a while. The products in the Forbidden Forest are still very rich, enough to feed a fire dragon, not to mention those strange and magical creatures. There are also a large number of wild animals in the Forbidden Forest, such as wild boars, goats, bison, etc., and Noble can easily feed himself. It's really not possible. So are the magical animals that gather together edible, such as giant spiders. Although Acromantulas are dangerous, all their attacks are ineffective in front of fire dragons. Their fangs are difficult to pierce the dragon's skin, and dragons are also very resistant to poison. But how many spider webs are needed to kill the dragon? Bind a dragon, therefore, The acromantula is really a group of large crabs in the eyes of the fire dragon, and it is quite crispy and delicious when roasted. After Nuobo had eaten and drank enough, Luren picked up Nuobo's big paw, and then took out a small silver knife. Noble became alert all of a sudden. "Shit shoveler, what do you want? Come on, borrow a little blood, just a little." Luren showed a bright smile. Norbert originally refused this, but after thinking about it, he decided to give the shoveling face a face, so he handed Luren his paw. Luren picked up the knife and scratched it, then nothing happened. Luren cut it again, but left a white mark on the skin. "Noble? What about you scraping here?" It couldn't stand it any longer, so it jumped out a paw, and then stroked the other arm, leaving a small stream of red blood, which was caught by Luren in the large glass bottle he had prepared. Soon, Luren obtained almost 1 ear, that is, 1/4 pint of fire dragon blood, and the small wound on Noble's hand healed quickly, which made Luren amazed. Powerful defense and self-healing power. No wonder the fire dragon is so powerful, and those dragons that only exist in ancient legends are said to be stronger than fire dragons. Still stronger, don't know what they look like. Luren shook Noble's big head. "Noble, do you want to sign a contract with me? Establish a closer relationship from now on?" Noble looked at Luren for a while, but did not express any objection. Luren was overjoyed, and then he hurried back to Hogwarts, and then went to the room of requirement. "I need a place where I won't be disturbed by others." Luren stood in front of a tapestry, walked back and forth in the empty corridor 3 times, then pushed open the door that appeared suddenly, and entered the room provided by the room of requirement. The room was empty except for an oil lamp, a table and a chair. Luren took out the materials for the ritual magic that he had prepared before, melted the candle, and poured Norbert's blood into it. In this way, the preparations for the ceremony are complete. Ritual magic needs to be performed in a clean, undisturbed environment. Of course, there is also a need for the overall external environment, but there are few places in the UK that have better conditions than Hogwarts. Performing ritual magic in Hogwarts does not need to consider the problem of too much interference from the external environment. After choosing a suitable environment, you need to meditate, accumulate energy, and clear away distracting thoughts, so that you can communicate with a hidden existence. And this kind of meditation ability was only mastered by Luren after training in private for a period of time. Luren closed his eyes and tried to concentrate. Soon, his mind became empty. He didn't think about anything now, and his mind was peaceful. He opened his eyes, and now Luren's eyes are very clear and bright. Following the procedure in the notes given by his senior, he took out 3 candles from the bag in turn, and arranged them into an equilateral triangle among them. The apex of the triangle is a candle that symbolizes the gods. Luren is at the midpoint of the bottom of the triangle. The left hand is a candle that symbolizes himself, and the right hand is a candle mixed with the blood of himself and Norbert. Luren took out his wand, and lit 3 candles in order from the gods to himself, and finally to needs. After lighting the candles, a faint fragrance surrounds the room. Luren took out the bottles of essential oils from Mrs. Imani and sprinkled them in the middle of the candle. Then, he pulled out his wand, pointed at the essential oils, mobilized the surrounding magic power, without adding any spells, just let the magic power mix with the essential oils, and then evaporate it into the air. Luren's eyes darkened quickly, and there seemed to be wind gathering around him. God higher than the starry sky, please listen to my prayer. God older than eternity, please respond to my appeal. Luren used Latin for this language, because it is said that this language is similar to the language used by the gods, and the probability of being answered by the gods will be higher. It's normal to think about it carefully. When a person talks to you in a language you are familiar with, the probability of you talking to him will be higher. As obscure but powerful ancient words came out of Luren's mouth, the surrounding space seemed to have changed a little. The closed room was filled with mist, and the atmosphere seemed to become mysterious. Noisy. The flame of the candle suddenly became vigorous, and the burning speed accelerated a lot. Luren took out a piece of real parchment, which was the summoning contract he had written in advance and would sign with Norbert. At this point, everything is in line with the senior sister's record, and Luren can continue his ritual magic. Luren felt the invisible and vigorous power around him, and also faintly felt that he was being watched by some kind of existence, so he chanted in a low voice, "The starry sky is more sublime, existence longer than eternity. I pray for your strength, under the witness of the starry sky and history. I pray for your favor. I pray that you will witness my contract with the dragonborn. Moonlight flower, the herb that belongs to the night, under the medium of the moonlight flower, please pass on your divine power to my contract." Accompanied by Lu Ren's chanting, the 3 candles burned like torches, and the aroma in the room was so strong that it seemed to have turned into mist, hovering around Lu Ren. Judging from the burning speed of the candle, if Lu Ren read a little longer or stuttered in Latin, he might not be able to finish the sentence. When the candles were about to burn out, their flames reached their zenith, and the flames engulfed Lu Ren's parchment, burning it to ashes. As the parchment burned, Lu Ren felt that his consciousness gradually became blurred, but in his heart he faintly felt that he was connected with a living body in the distance. That living body was so hot that Lu Ren, just feeling it, I felt a wave of heat rushing towards my face, as if I was next to the oven. Lu Ren lost consciousness. He lay there quietly, surrounded by silence. It's been a long time, but it may be just a moment, just like closing your eyes again after being woken up by the alarm in the morning. It may be 1 minute later or 3 hours later when you open your eyes. Lu Ren gradually became aware of his own existence. He felt that he was lying on something. As the sense of touch recovered, Lu Ren gradually came to his senses. He realized that he seemed to be lying naked on an unknown substance, surrounded by an empty space. He looked around and found himself lying in a mist, but this mist was not like any he had seen before. If I insist on describing it, it is actually very similar to the paradise shot on the cartoon. The ground on which Lu Ren was lying seemed to be white, neither hot nor cold, just a kind of existence, a flat and empty thing. He frowned. Didn't he just sign the summoning contract? How could it suddenly appear in such a place? Wouldn't he be dead? A terrifying thought popped into Lu Ren's mind. Could it be that he failed to sign the contract and was killed by backlash? He was a little flustered. After all, he had experienced too little in this life, and he still had a lot of regrets. But soon, the mist gradually changed its shape. First, a suit of clothes condensed on Lu Ren's body. It was not a wizard's robe, but something similar to the uniform of a Japanese high school student. Then the whole world suddenly lit up. Lu Ren, there was only a vast expanse of whiteness left in his vision, and he couldn't see anything clearly. When he regained his sight, he appeared in a room, sitting with his back against the wall, and facing him was a cracked window. A female knight in a blue robe with blonde hair and silver-white armor was standing in front of him. "Are you my master, Lu Ren?" Greek letter sigma, degree Cyrillic letter de degree, so I died, and then traveled to the world of fate? Isn't this the famous painting of the moon in front of you? Lu Ren was dumbfounded. The crux of his problem now is that he hasn't read Fate like he studied Harry Potter. He only watched a dozen episodes of Fate Stay Night, and then you told me that now I have traveled to the world of fate? Who can stand this? But he soon realized the abnormality of this scene. He couldn't see what the surrounding background was, and felt that everything was shrouded in mist, making it hard to see clearly. He is very sure that the famous painting of the moon in FSN is high definition and uncensored. Then everything twisted up when Lu Ren saw the scene in front of him clearly again. He became even more speechless. He is now in a lush green prairie, exactly the same as the prairie on the Windows startup interface. He was sitting on a chair with a small round table in front of him and a lace parasol on top of his head. A woman with white hair and black clothes was sitting opposite him. Lu Ren. So this time it's ReZero? Even an idiot can sense something is wrong. This is absolutely impossible to time travel. Besides, if time travel to the world of ReZero as the main character, it would be really miserable. Then the picture began to distort again. This time, Lu Ren found himself standing in a pool of water. In front of him was a huge iron cage with a word seal pasted on it. Very good, Naruto. Lu Ren couldn't hold back the spit in his heart. If Conan, pirates, and Gintama have scenes such as signing a contract, do I have to go to those famous scenes to visit one by one? And a huge shadow behind the cage gradually emerged. It was not a legendary nine-tailed fox, but a huge fire dragon. Lu Ren conservatively estimated that this thing was also 50 feet long. It walked up to Lu Ren's eyes, and then spoke. "You shit shoveler, your spiritual world is very rich." Lu Ren. End of this chapter. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 163, Dragon Mage. Lu Ren had an ominous premonition. This thing in front of him must not be Norbert. I really don't need a comedian-summoned beast. Noble. Lu Ren tentatively opened his mouth, and he still had a little luck in his heart. "It's my girl." The fire dragon wagged its tail triumphantly. "Poop shoveler, look. This girl will be bigger than she is now when she grows up. Luren. Well, at least the size is satisfactory. Think about it, two wizards are dueling, and they summon a 50-foot fire dragon with a slap, and hide a hammer on the opposite side. Fire dragon riding face, tell me how to lose? In fact, Norbert is still a little humble. It is a female dragon, and it is also raised by a wizard. The food conditions are very good. It is a certainty that it will grow to 50 feet in the future, and it can even become bigger. 50 feet is about 15 meters, and the average residential story height is only 2.8 meters, and the story height of some unscrupulous developers is even 2.2 meters, 2.5 meters, that is to say, the length of Noble is longer than that of a 5-story building. The small building is even taller. The more I think about it, the more I feel it. Luren's mood improved a lot. He began to study the surrounding environment. Why does this place look like this? What the hell is that anime skewer just now? This is actually your spiritual world, Noble answered for Luren. You subconsciously think what signing a contract should look like, and what scene will appear in your spiritual world. Even my image, it's all about you. Saying that, Norbert's figure distorted again, and the scene changed again, turning back to the original mist, but this time, the figures of Luren and Norbert turned into two halos. Luren's lump is slightly larger, but Norbert's is tighter. Then, is the contract signed? Luren asked. How do I know? It should be finished. I can feel the connection with you. I can try it after we go out. Then Noble went offline, and its halo disappeared immediately. Luren was stunned. How did this thing quit? But when he changed his mind and thought of quitting, Luren successfully quit. When he came out, he found that he was still in the small dark room, and the 3 candles in front of him had been completely burned out. He groped his body up and down, and found nothing unusual. Only when he opened the clothes on his chest, did he realize something was wrong. There was a small tattoo on his heart, which looked like a fire dragon. The tattoos are extremely realistic, as if a fire dragon would really fly out when poked. Luren put his hand on it, and could faintly feel a heart beating slightly besides his own. He put his hand lightly on the dragon's tattoo, then used his magic power, and said the summoning words. Luren's summoning words were the same as Senior Gemma's, except that the silver dragon Liu was replaced by the fire dragon Noble. Accompanied by his singing, the surrounding air created circles of ripples like the surface of water, and soon, a huge dragon head protruded out of nowhere, staring at a pair of yellow eyes like copper bells, and the top corners of the head reflected bronze-colored rays. Then there's its lizard-like body, covered with black scales that look very solid. Then, a black dragon with a body length of more than 3 meters came out of the void and stood behind Luren. This is my pride, Norwegian Ridgeback. Norbert! Luren yelled in satisfaction, and Norbert spat out a dragon's breath more than 2 meters long in cooperation. It has to be said that although Norbert is only a child who is not yet 3 months old, his appearance is already excellent. Standing with him, Luren can give others a sense of suffocation. Then Luren waved his hand, and Noble disappeared, and Luren could sense it by virtue of his vague telepathy with Norbert. It didn't go back to Hagrid's cabin, but lived in his own body. Hagrid eats and sleeps every day. It's really boring. It's more interesting to follow you to see the outside. When Luren asked Norbert why he didn't go back to Hagrid, Norbert replied like this. Then what do you eat? Luren was a little worried that Noble in his body would make him an invincible big eater. Fortunately, Noble said that it can maintain its development and survival by absorbing the magic power in Luren's body. Of course, Luren can also make up for the lack of magic power by eating more. Luren roughly sensed that nearly, % of the magic power in his body was used to support this dragon. Sure enough, dragons are not easy to raise. The magic power in Luren's body now is probably only as much as that of a second-year little wizard. In the future, he should save some magic power when performing magic, and he can't be extravagant, but fortunately, everything is worth it, and I can be called a dragon mage in the future. Luren left the room, and sent a note to Hagrid, telling him not to worry about Norbert. He had already arranged it properly. At the same time, Dumbledore also received a letter from the Ministry of Magic. He lightly broke off the wax with the Ministry of Magic logo on it, pinched his glasses with one hand, and looked at them seriously. As the letter drew to a close, Dumbledore's eyebrows also raised. This is a letter from Fudge, a letter of appeal. Recently, Fudge's situation is not good. The British Ministry of Magic is facing the most serious financial deficit in history. At the same time, the international situation is unprecedentedly tense, which makes him feel like he's sitting on the crater. But what is interesting is that the debt of, million galleons did not affect the normal operation of the British wizarding world. First, the major pure-blood families resisted the debt together, and second, Grindelwald did not circulate the money in the market, he just hid the money. The third is that the previous investment in the Soviet Union has now begun to recover. After the incident, Gringotts directly turned on the same nuclear-powered money-printing machine of the Federal Reserve, and stepped up to produce a batch of gold galleons to make up for the gap in the market. But the galleon in Grindelwald's hand hangs over the Ministry of Magic's head like this sort of damn lurks. No one knows when Grindelwald will make a move, but the money is enough to trigger inflation. Grindelwald only used the gold in it for investment. He has no intention of destroying the currency system of the British magic world. The gold galleon is hidden at the bottom of Durmstrang Black Lake. He has no plans to use it for the time being. Period. But the influence of the pure-blood family on the Ministry of Magic is indeed deeper, and Fudge has also become a mascot in the shape of a black pot. Several powerful figures in the ministry are waiting for Fudge to replace him after he resists the thunder once, but Fudge still wanted to struggle, so there was such a letter. End of this chapter. Chapter 164 Battle Mage. After thinking about it for a while, it was more appropriate to reconcile with Hogwarts first. In Fudge's eyes, he and Hogwarts have something to talk about. Is there anything you can't talk about? At worst, I will admit my mistake. And the way he stabilizes his position is also very simple. Politicians, how can they stabilize their position? That is to increase exposure during this period of time. Fudge was quite active, and met with the Ministry of Magic of several countries. The reason was very simple, that is, to call on the Ministry of Magic of all countries to unite against Grindelwald. This made the Daily Prophet full of his news every 3 days, not to mention, the effect was still there. Now, he turned his mind to Hogwarts. He hoped that Hogwarts could send an outstanding student representative to interview him, and then he would publish the interview on the Daily Prophet. As for the location of the interview, Fudge decided to be in his own home, so that he could appear closer to the people. This is actually a kind of courtship and win-win, and the students who interview him will add a lot of color to their resumes at the end of the letter. Fudge also frankly admitted his mistake, and he sincerely expressed that he could admit it. After all, the biggest pot on his head is no longer the injustice of Sirius, and he hopes to get Dumbledore's forgiveness. Dumbledore finished reading the letter, threw the letter on the table, and fell into deep thought, and just as he closed his eyes and thought, a green flame burst out from the fireplace in his office. A tall figure emerged from the fireplace. "Oh, you're here." Dumbledore was not surprised at all. The visitor was a strong female wizard. In fact, it is not very accurate to say that she is a wizard. She is more like a swordsman. She wasn't wearing wizard robes, but a slightly revealing leather uniform, revealing a large swath of chocolate-colored skin and strong muscles. And the most eye-catching thing is that she has a pair of whiff-like ears. She is the guard of the Gerard family contacted by Dumbledore. She is named Kylenu, and she is a wizard from Eastern Europe. She didn't go to school. She learned magic at home since she was a child, and later showed outstanding talent in swordsmanship, so her skill tree was crooked, and became the school of ancient wizards. Learn a light technique, and then the rest of the skills points for agility, defense, strength and one-handed sword mastery. As for her ears, it is said to be caused by an irreversible transfiguration spell. Not to mention, this guy is super good at fighting. Duels with other wizards are basically a close-up. And take him away now. She is employed by Patriarch Relit as his guard and swordsmanship teacher. The fact that old Griart could send her here meant that it was really possible for his granddaughter to come to Hogwarts to study. "I'm here." Kylenu spoke English with a very strong French accent. "The owner hopes that you can send a student to my house, so that the owner can have a deeper understanding of the teaching at Hogwarts. By the way, Missy, make-up lessons. It's best to speak French, otherwise we'll have to find a way to make a translator." A face appeared in Dumbledore's mind, and he had a bold idea. "I have a candidate, you can meet him." Soon, Luren, who had just signed the contract, came to Dumbledore's office. As soon as he entered, he saw Kylenu, and she made an extremely deep impression on him. Tall, strong, big, and with a pair of animal ears. This was Luren's first impression of Kylenu, and it was okay. In addition, one of Kylenu's eyes was covered by a white eye patch, and a long sword was pinned to his waist. In Kylenu's eyes, Luren is a very frail black-haired boy, giving people a kind of well-behaved feeling. She couldn't help shaking her ears. This guy, the eldest lady's temperament, he may not be able to handle it. What to deal with? Luren was very vigilant. He smelled a conspiracy. Ahem, We'll talk about that later, you should read this first. As he spoke, Dumbledore handed over the letter. Lu-Ren took it, and after a quick glance, he couldn't help frowning. Fudge, a guy who doesn't know what to do, actually has the face to contact Hogwarts, still want Hogwarts to give him a hand, but after thinking about it, Fudge is indeed such a person. Lu-Ren glanced at Dumbledore. He didn't want the old headmaster to be a good person in this situation. As a result, Dumbledore blinked at Lu-Ren, and Lu-Ren immediately understood. Fudge, you have never been beaten by the media. I heard that the interview process will be published on the Daily Prophet. Lu-Ren pretended to ask casually. Yes. Dumbledore replied with a smile. Then our minister must be happy to add 2 more media outlets to publish his interview process. Lu-Ren narrowed his eyes. It would be best to have 2 more international media outlets. Dumbledore looked at Jalinu. I wonder if the French media are interested. Jalinu couldn't figure it out for a while, but she still felt that the domestic media would not let this kind of news go. That's great. Lu-Ren slapped his hands lightly. Leave the interview to me. It will definitely satisfy the minister. Lu-Ren readily accepted the task. By the way, Professor, who is this? Lu-Ren turned his head to look at Jalinu. Although it was impolite to ask for his name now, Dumbledore distracted his attention just now. She is Jalinu, from France. She is the head of the guard of the ancient Greyrett family. Dumbledore patiently introduced to Lu-Ren. Her coming here is related to the enrollment of a student in the next semester. Since this is the case, then I will resign first. Lu-Ren sensed that something was wrong, and he wanted to leave quickly without getting involved in Dumbledore's little plan. Wait a minute. Dumbledore said in an irresistible tone, the granddaughter of the Greyrett family lacks a tutor for summer vacation. She requires good character and learning, and it is best to speak French. Lu-Ren, I'm so sorry, I don't speak French. Dumbledore, there is a saying in Chinese called drink black water well, can you read it to me? I am curious about the Chinese pronunciation of this sentence. Lu-Ren was confused by this sudden question. He read it again, drink well black water. After reading, his face suddenly changed. It's over, it's tricked. Kailinu narrowed his eyes. It turns out that there are a lot of H in this sentence, and this sound is uvula in French. People who have learned French will unconsciously say H as a vibrato when speaking, and this tremolo does not exist in the Central Plains, and the Central Plains people who can pronounce this sound have a high probability of learning French. Lu-Ren was exposed just now. Dumbledore, so, Greek letter sigma plan works. Atu, there are so few recommendation tickets recently, please recommend a ticket. Seeing that I have added a chapter on Sunday and Monday, Sapo rolls around and asks for a recommendation ticket. The author, ask for votes. Oh, plus recommended tickets, please, monthly tickets, too. End of this chapter, chapter 165. Yes, Minister. 2 in 1. Dumbledore, I've heard it before, you can speak French, so don't pretend. Kailinu, the duration of this job is about more than a month, maybe less than a month. Kailinu added next to him, if he can be hired. Lu-Ren? Exclamation mark. I'm not going. I have plans for summer vacation. Lu-Ren said, are you kidding me? More than a month? How many days are left in my summer vacation? I still want to have a good rest during the summer vacation. Okay, then I'll arrange someone. To Lu-Ren's surprise, Dumbledore let him go, but when Lu-Ren was about to leave the office, Dumbledore asked behind him, by the way, do you know how much galleons a unicorn horn costs? And their tail hairs, which are sold by the root, Lu-Ren? Dumbledore said slowly, a unicorn horn can be sold for 21 galleons in Diagon Alley, and a unicorn tail can be sold for 10 galleons. Come to think of it, it's like unicorn blood. A vial is 70 galleons on the black market. And the whole school knows you have a live unicorn. There was a drop of cold sweat dripping from Lu-Ren's head. He had been hanging out with Hagrid all this time, which made him ignore the value of these common things. Yes, if you want to ask who is the invisible tycoon of Hogwarts, then Hagrid can definitely be one. He has a good relationship with the Acromantula. As long as he wants, he can sell the venom of the Acromant on the market at a low price, and he also harvested a lot of unicorn tail hairs during the patrol, and the animals injured sometimes, he used the fur as a bandage. Local tyrant. Of course, it was this pure mentality that allowed him to make friends with the animals in the Forbidden Forest. Hagrid has never actively sold various products of fantastic beasts. Comparing my heart to my heart, if pet dogs also have a social organization, and I find that my dog plucks my hair and replaces my bones every day while I am asleep, I might not be happy, right? Hagrid is simple, but other wizards are not. The existence of the little unicorn will make countless people cast coveted eyes on him. Although it is certainly true that he is positive, there are also countless kinds of strange magic in the magic world, which is hard to guard against. Moreover, as a crispy character, wizards often die in unimaginable ways. For example, the eldest of the three famous Peveril brothers, the first owner of the Elder Wand, was actually drunk and had his throat cut. And in this way, I am afraid that it will not be very convenient for me to go home. Rushing to expose the location of one's hometown would bring unnecessary risks to parents. As far as Lou Ren knew, only Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall knew the address of his home, and his hometown was still very safe. The best solution for me is to go to Greyrit's house this summer vacation, and it's best to stay with other reliable adult wizards in the next vacation, such as Dumbledore, Sirius and the Weasley family. But thinking about the good, this matter is indeed a rare good job. How many surprises can the inheritance of the ancient magic family bring to oneself? Lou Ren squeezed out a smile. So what are the requirements for being a tutor? Soon, Lou Ren negotiated the time to go to Greyrit's house during the summer vacation, and the day to interview Fudge was also booked. Just tonight, Le Monde, the largest selling newspaper in the French magic world, will send a reporter to follow the interview. When evening came, Professor McGonagall brought Lou Ren to the center of London. Yes, Professor McGonagall led Lou Ren this time. The place where they apparated this time was in a lonely alley. Then they turned around, first came out of the alley, and came to a wide street full of traffic. The streets were full of people, and the clothes of Lou Ren and Mag were obviously eye-catching. They were still wearing wizard robes, but they didn't cause a stir, because this is London, and everyone didn't have so much free time to watch two theologians or cosplay lovers. Afterwards, Professor McGonagall led Lou Ren into a side road and walked for a distance. The buildings on both sides of the street gradually became dilapidated. At last, they came to a bleak little street consisting of a few shabby-looking offices and a tavern. You haven't been here yet, have you? This is where the British Ministry of Magic is located. I used to work here before I taught at Hogwarts, the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. They once tried to give me a promotion, but Dumbledore told me Hogwarts lacked a transfiguration teacher, so I resigned and went to Hogwarts. Revisiting the old place, Professor McGonagall seemed to have a lot of emotion. She pointed to a dilapidated red telephone box nearby. That's the entrance to the Ministry of Magic. Then she pointed to the opposite side of the box. That's the residence of the Minister of Magic. Lou Ren looked along her fingertips, and he saw a dilapidated small room. If Professor McGonagall hadn't told him, he'd have thought it was a toilet. The appearance is very dilapidated, but it's just an appearance. Muggles can't even see this dilapidated house. Professor McGonagall explained patiently. Then she led Lou Ren to the front of the house. At this time, there were already 3 people standing outside the house. There were 2 men and a woman. One man had short straight gray hair and looked very strong. The other was a fat middle-aged man wearing a coat and a bowler hat. The woman looks ordinary, and her dress has no characteristics. Lou Ren breathed a sigh of relief. None of the 3 seemed to be related to Rita Skeeter. Minerva, you're here. The short-haired man was the first to notice Professor McGonagall. He shook hands with Professor McGonagall before looking at Lou Ren. This is a student sent by Hogwarts, Lou Ren. Lou Ren, this is the Ministry of Magic or lurks. Lou Ren couldn't help but forgive the famous Auror. There are many Aurors, form Aurors and quasi-Aurors in the British Ministry of Magic. Among them, the more famous ones are the former Auror Mad-Eye Moody, Kingsley, and Tonks. Apart from the 2 of them, Dawlish is definitely the most famous Aurors. After all, the name is too similar to a fast food restaurant. When Lou Ren was a child, he couldn't tell the difference between Dexter's and Daleks. In addition to the traffic that comes with his name, this guy's record is also very wonderful. Almost every time he plays, he will be embarrassing. He had 4 defeats in total, by Dumbledore, Hagrid, Tonks, and Neville's grandma. Dumbledore also made sense. After all, he was the strongest white wizard in the magic world, but it would be quite embarrassing for Dawlish to fight 4 times and be wiped out by the group. Hagrid can also forcefully explain. After all, he is a half-blood giant, but being defeated by the younger generation Twinks and the old grandma respectively, it's hard to justify it. Grandma Neville even beat him to the hospital that time. Dawlish, a professional Auror combat power gauge. As for the other 2, the man is Jean-Pierre, a reporter from Le Monde, who is mainly responsible for the international news section, and the woman is Betty Braithwaite, a reporter from the Daily Prophet. After confirming their identities, Dawlish invited the four into Fudge's home. Fudge's home, or the dormitory where successive ministers of magic would move in, doesn't look luxurious, just like an ordinary British family: a small tea table, flower arrangements, a floral sofa and some landscape paintings. The only difference from Muggles is that the paintings move. The homely Fudge no longer wore his pinstriped suit and bright red tie, not to mention the long black cape, purple pointed boots and dark green bowler hat. On the contrary, he wore a pair of brown loose trousers, a grey round neck sweater on the upper body, and a fat belly. He looked like an uncle next door, adding a bit of amiable temperament. "Sit whatever you want." Fudge invited the four of them into the room, and Dawlish bowed after entering the door, then turned and left. "Would you like something to drink? Tea, coffee, hot cocoa? Would you like to try the very popular cola among Muggles?" As he spoke, he summoned a teapot and several cups, poured drinks for everyone, and snapped his fingers, conjuring a plate of snacks on the table in front of Luren and the others. "Okay, let's get straight to the point." He stood in front of Luren and rubbed his hands together, looking a little nervous. "I have to say that Fudge's acting skills and ability to wear clothes are very good." Meanwhile, both journalists produced their quills, which, it should be noted, were all regular quills, not the Rita Skeeter kind. Luren also noticed that the French reporter also seemed to speak good English, and could communicate perfectly with British wizards without even having an accent. The interview begins. Luren and Fuji made some insignificant polite remarks first. Afterwards, Fudge stood by the wall, with his hands behind his back, and began to talk eloquently. "As I said, Luren, the people of the magic world wanted me to be the Minister of Magic, so I reluctantly took over the burden. Isn't it a heavy responsibility?" Luren started his inquiry while holding a quill in one hand. "In my opinion, a person who chooses to serve the public throughout his life must take up this responsibility. It's a lot of power." Fudge seemed to recall something unpleasant. I know. But he quickly adjusted his emotions. Sometimes power makes people flattered, but it also makes people humble and introspective. Going to work at the Ministry of Magic every day, sitting in the when I'm in the minister's office, I feel. Luren directly interrupted his official routine. "I have a question, Minister. As the Minister of Magic of the United Kingdom who is in charge of power, what personal achievements have you made?" Fudge froze for a moment, and quickly glanced at the two reporters who were writing furiously. Achievements? There are still a lot. I was the director of the Department of Magical Accidents and Disasters when Mysterious Man just fell, and later I became the 32nd Minister of Magic, and I also served as the British branch of the International Federation of Wizards. No, the practical things you do are beneficial to the policies, regulations or other things of ordinary wizards." Luren showed a playful smile. "Benefits." Fudge's expression was like a student encountering a new word while doing English listening. "Right. Is it my accent? I mean, do you have a policy or something that benefits ordinary wizards?" "No, I mean your accent. Your spoken language is as good as a native speaker. Other wizards?" "Of course there are many. This is the responsibility. 18 hours a day, no weekends." Fudge subconsciously he denied it, but he quickly realized his mistake. He tiptoed lightly, looked down at Luren, and tried to see what was written in his notebook. Luren looked up at him, and he hastily squeezed out an awkward yet polite smile. "Can you give me an example? Otherwise, the report will look very empty." After Luren finished writing the last letter, he glanced at the interview draft, which took up an entire page of parchment but lacked any substantive content. "Example? Don't know where to start. Well, we've had a lot of Ministry of Magic coordination policy. Well, we get together, the whole the British wizarding world." Fudge glanced at Pierre, "the most outstanding mind. Everyone works together. But when you look back on the past, you can proudly say I did it. It's like a writer looking back on his own work." Luren pressed tightly, not saving any face for Fudge. "The Ministry of Magic is a sophisticated machine. People have their own opinions and it takes time. There is a saying in the Muggle community that Rome was not built in a day. Would you like a cup of hot tea? You seem to have finished your tea." "Fudge, I can't wait to draw out my wand and use a disappearing spell on the tea in their cups. Or how about some dim sum? The minister's dim sum is famous for its deliciousness." Betty didn't want to see Fudge get embarrassed again, and tried to ease the atmosphere by speaking. "No need, I still have a lot of tea here." "Thanks, but I'm not hungry at all." Pierre and Luren, who were watching the play, refused to change the subject. Or, tell me about your recent visit? I saw the news about your visit to the New Zealand Ministry of Magic in the Daily Prophet. Betty gave Fudge a step down. Fudge's eyes lit up. Ah, yes, a visit from the New Zealand Ministry of Magic. I visited the New Zealand Ministry of Magic before, and held several symposiums with their Minister of Magic on jointly defending against Grindelwald, together with a ministry to resist Grindelwald's invasion. Then what have you achieved? Luren asked lazily. New Zealand Ministry of Magic, can they have triple-digit wizards in total? Of course, the headlines for 3 days in a row, 3 full pages of reports, the nightly wizard news scrolling our conversation. Fudge's eyes lit up. So what was the process of your interview? Professor McGonagall had already seen through everything, and she said the first sentence after entering the room. I read my summary to him and he read his. Then we decided to swap it so it would be quicker. I think today's interview should really be over. I have a meeting in a bit. Goodbye. Fudge was completely overwhelmed, and he hurriedly ended the interview. When sending them out of the room, Fudge almost looked at the 2 reporters with a desperate smile. You really want to put this conversation in the newspaper as it is? Pierre and Betty looked at each other, and replied in unison, Yes, Minister. End of this chapter. Chapter 166. The British Ministry of Magic's Fudge Joke. After the interview, Luren returned to school early the next morning. The sole conversation between Luren and Fuji appeared in the newspaper The Prophet Daily and the World News. Each sent a newspaper to Luren very considerately, but Luren couldn't keep his legs together. On the cover, Fudge was completely Who am I, where am I, and what are you doing? Expression. The headline of the Daily Prophet in the United Kingdom is quite normal. Hogwarts outstanding students interview the Minister of Magic. Fudge. To be honest, this headline is too mediocre, but it can't be blamed. Who let this be the newspaper of the British wizarding community? It would be nice to be able to send out the original flavor of the interview if it weren't for the participation of the French this time. The interview would probably have been completely deleted. The French are more straightforward. The headline on the front page reads in bold letters, Cornelius Fudge, a minister who knows nothing but news, and a subtitle below it, so we are very kindly give him the headlines. The most terrible thing is that the title of the French this time is bilingual in English and French. The careful thinking of the French is well known to passers-by. The French are afraid that the world will not be chaotic, and there is black information about the British Minister of Magic. The whole world knows that this must not be publicized. Moreover, they not only reported the news on the front page, but also published countless jokes in the joke column at the back of the newspaper. Ron took the newspaper in Luren's hand. He couldn't read French, so he could only guess the main idea of the news from the English headline on the cover, and then he flipped through it twice at will, only to see English again in the joke column of the newspaper. Period. The first block of tofu reads, a student at Hogwarts was arrested by aurors for yelling idiot at Fudge at the Ministry of Magic and sentenced to 6 years in Azkaban. Sentenced to 1 year for insulting the leader of the Ministry of Magic and 5 years for leaking the secrets of the Ministry of Magic, but I heard that he will be out of prison soon, because since Fudge visited the Ministry of Magic of other countries and gave a speech, it is no longer a Ministry of Magic secret. Ron, cap. He continued to look down, and inside the second tofu block was written, Cornelius Fudge went to visit the art exhibition celebrating the defeat of 2 generations of Dark Lords. What is this painting about? Asked Fudge. This painting, Minister, is a scene of our heroic Order of the Phoenix fighting the Death Eaters, a ministry worker replied. What about this picture over here? The painting depicts a scene where Newt and Grindelwald face off. And what about this fat ass with a big head? Minister, this is not a painting, but a mirror. Ron, the third piece is very short, only 2 sentences, 1 question and 1 answer. The question is, what's the longest joke? Answer, Fudge's speech in the Daily Prophet. Ron, there are a lot of jokes that follow, taking up a whole page, all about Fudge. The French still have a sense of humor. Ron said while wiping away tears from laughter after breakfast. They went to visit Harry again like the previous 2 days. If Harry didn't wake up today, he would definitely miss the graduation ceremony at the end of the semester. Fortunately, when they came outside the ward, Madame Pomfrey told them, Harry was awake but they only had time to chat with Harry before they were kicked out by Madame Pomfrey. The evening is the year-end banquet. The scores and rankings of the 4 colleges this year are, number 4, Hufflepuff, 352 points, number 3, Ravenclaw 426 points, Number 2, Slytherin 472 points. Number 1, Gryffindor 522 points more. Gryffindor successfully broke Slytherin's monopoly on the House Cup. This does not include Dumbledore's bonus points. Gryffindor's the real deal, surpassing Slytherin without water, and regaining the top spot. Lou Ren also made a small contribution. His arrival caused a subtle change in the world line. Harry and the others did not deduct 150 points from Gryffindor at once, and they also won the last Quidditch game in the game. Under the superposition of the two, Gryffindor successfully overtook Slytherin. As the last banquet at the end of the semester, everyone who could come came. The entire auditorium was decorated with gold and red representing Gryffindor, and it was also full of people. On the wall behind the guest table hung a huge banner depicting the Gryffindor lion. As the meal approached, the professors entered the auditorium one after another. Looking at the professors in the teacher's seat, Lou Ren frowned. He seems to have summed up some extraordinary rules among these professors. Of course, if this rule is revealed, Gryffindor's points may not be deducted enough today. That is, it seems that this Hogwarts teaching position is cursed. The curse is that someone who becomes a Hogwarts professor must be single or in a bad relationship. Looking all the way from the teacher's bench, Snape, needless to say, Professor McGonagall is also a hard-working person. When she was young, she fell in love with a muggle named Dougal McGregor, but in the end, because of the secular, she left the man because of her prejudice, and it was illegal to marry a muggle at that time, and Professor McGonagall would lose his job at the Ministry of Magic if he violated the International Statute of Secrecy. Dumbledore was similar, lover sentenced to life in prison. The remaining professors, Professor Flitwick, Professor Sprout, etc., almost all have no spouses. Are the professors at Hogwarts all given a halo of being single? Of course, this curse was lifted in the next generation, and the person who broke it was Neville, who married Hannah Abbott of Hufflepuff and managed to get out of the single. Of course, most people thought that he and Luna got together instead. Luna became a magizoologist after the war and eventually married Rolf Scamander, Newt's grandson. Harry didn't make it to the Great Hall until the banquet was about to start. Madame Pomfrey hadn't planned for him to attend such an event until Harry passed a medical examination the moment he walked into the auditorium. Just like the students thought the head teacher had walked into the self-study classroom, the entire auditorium suddenly became silent. But soon, the little wizards, like the students who found out that the head teacher hadn't come in at all, broke out louder, and many little wizards even stood up and stared at Harry. This was the first time Harry had been in the limelight in the second half of term. He walked to the Gryffindor table and sat between Lou Ren and Hermione, pretending not to notice people's gazes. Fortunately, everyone was quickly attracted by Dumbledore's speech. What he said was the same as in previous years. The only difference was that he added 200 points to Gryffindor, because of Lou Ren's outstanding performance. But what does that matter? Just icing on the cake. Because the House Cup already belonged to Gryffindor, of course, the little wizards of Gryffindor were still very happy, and all of them clapped their hands red. After all, the victory against Slytherin turned into a crushing victory against Slytherin. End of this chapter. Chapter 167. The Dursleys Guest. The night of the year-end banquet was the best night of Harry's life. Winning the Quidditch Cup for the first time in the Hogwarts House Cup. Two happy things coincided, and these two happiness brought more happiness to Harry. The time he got, the time of happiness like a dream. He will never forget this night. At the same time, the Dursleys also had a very memorable night. The time was pushed to an evening. A week ago, the three members of the Dursley family were enjoying dinner at the dining table. For them, today was extremely happy, not only that the annoying nephew was not on the house, but also because Uncle Vernon might negotiate the biggest deal in his life. When he proudly talked about it at the dining table, Petunia stood up in surprise and gave him a kiss. Dolly also stopped eating and showed a naive smile. His pocket money will be lost again. Doubled, and this time he might be able to switch to a bike, a new model from Specialized that he has been coveting for a long time. Uncle Vernon cleared his throat seriously. That Mason, do you remember Petunia? The builder I told you about before. He plans to come to our house for dinner with his wife. That's not the point, although he is also a very important guest. What is important is that he said that a boss behind him also wants to come here. Mason's company was acquired by a new group that emerged recently. This group has a lot of money and has made a lot of big moves. Uncle Vernon had a bit of salad dressing hanging on his beard, and he trembled with his laughter. The opportunity is right in front of my eyes. They are engaged in construction and mining, and they need a lot of drilling machines. And that guy is still. It can be said that it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to not be in our house. God is so kind to me. It must be the compensation for my 11 years of misery. Speaking of his nephew, Vernon was very angry. He lived in his house for free every day, and put them in a dangerous situation. What's more, his so-called magic made his family very angry. Disgraceful. It hurt him worse than killing him. Decent is a very interesting word. It can be said that the word decent is the sharp weapon used by the bourgeoisie to harvest the so-called middle-class families. In order to be decent, a middle-class family needs to buy a grand house, an expensive car that may leak oil or fail to break, give children some useless cram schools, buy a lot of luxury goods full of IQ tax, and spend the money they earn. The money is handed back through the decent channel. How can there be any middle-class family in the world? They are all working people with different occupations. Unfortunately, Uncle Vernon's awareness is not enough. He fell into the trap called decency. He was now eloquently arranging the details of the dinner party, and a small gesture of the big boss made Vernon below him restless. Of course, he enjoyed it. Vernon talked about it for a week, and for a whole week, he kept talking about it. Coincidentally, the Masons came on the same day as the Hogwarts year-end dinner. The day before yesterday, a well-dressed old butler came to the door in person and gave them a greeting card, which made Vernon's bones lighten a little bit, and his voice was a little louder when he was talking about the weather with his neighbors. That morning, Uncle Vernon said the words 1.5 times. I think we should go through the evening schedule again. At 8 o'clock in the evening, everyone should be in their places. At this time, Petunia, you should, in the drawing room, said Aunt Petunia skillfully, waiting to welcome them graciously. Very well, very well. Dudley. I'm waiting to open the door for them. Dudley put on a disgustingly contrived smile, and squeezed his throat like the voice of a castrated pig. May I hold the clothes for you, my lord? Sir and dear Mr. and Mrs. Mason. They'll love him, said Aunt Petunia, ecstatically without self-awareness. Great. Uncle Vernon was also very happy. I'll take them to the living room, bring them to this location, and then introduce you. Vernon turned to Petunia, then I'll pour them some hot drinks. Wait until, carve, I announce dinner, said Aunt Petunia. Dudley, at this point you're going to say, may I show you to the restaurant, Mrs. Mason? Said Dudley, extending his Michelin-style arm to the lady in the void. Okay. Keep your spirits up, dinner is almost ready, right? Now all we have to do is wait. We should say something nice at the table. Petunia, do you have any suggestions? How about golf? I heard that Mason plays golf well. Mrs. Mason is just boasting about the clothes. As for the mysterious guest, I can only adapt to the circumstances. You can ask his family, he should like to talk about it. Vernon had an idea and found a brilliant idea. They talked happily. After dinner, Petunia, you take Mrs. Mason to the living room for coffee, and I will bring the topic to the drilling machine. If all goes well, I can sign the contract before the evening news. We will be choosing a new car by this time tomorrow. Type. There is also the location of the new home. Penny added with a smile. Yes, that's right. Now we're going to change into our dresses. Petunia, get the dishes ready. At 7:30 in the evening, the Dursleys' house looked like it had been redecorated. Every corner was spotless, and the kitchen had been polished to shine. There was a giant panna cotta flower laced with icing violets on top of the fridge, and a hunk of roast sizzled in the oven. Come on, eat something to fill your stomach first, so as not to be rude at the table. Aunt Petunia, who was wearing a light orange cocktail dress, took out several small cream cakes. Vernon and Dudley each ate a small cake to keep something in their stomachs. At this point, the two of them had changed into their best dresses and even had bow ties. The Masons came regularly, and the mysterious guest who came with the Masons. Vernon was overwhelmed by him the first moment he saw him. The mysterious guest was very handsome, with black hair and a pair of dark gray eyes, tall, wearing a suit that seemed to be worth the house, and the watch in his hand. Vernon dared not look at it after just one glance. This watch alone is more expensive than all his net worth. Vernon. Mason took the first step and shook hands with Vernon. Please allow me to introduce you. This is my boss, Sirius Black, the owner of Marauder Group. Vernon froze for a moment. Why is the name of this group so strange? Marauders, Predator, what the hell name? But he is also an old society person. His face has not changed a bit. He invited the three of them into the house with a smile on his face. End of this chapter. Chapter 168. My nephew Harry. Everything was proceeding in an orderly manner according to Vernon's script. This made Vernon feel more and more happy when Sirius presented him with a fire lily and a bottle of Bordeaux wine. He was in a state of flux. He didn't know wine, but the 1952 on the bottle alone made it impossible to lower the price, and fire lily was an outrageously expensive flower. Fire lily is the most delicate flower in Grandia. Its flowering period is only 1 week per year. Its purple petals, golden tentacles and budding stamens make people crazy about it. This kind of flower currently costs nearly £1,000 to buy a pot. These two gifts made Vernon very happy. He hastily invited the guests in, and then arranged them according to the rehearsed steps. Soon they were at the table. Mason couldn't help being surprised when he saw the sumptuous dinner. It's really hard work for you, Vernon. It must have taken so much trouble to prepare so many dishes. No, don't worry, haha. Vernon's face turned purple. Even though they had been preparing the ingredients since the morning, in his mouth, this was still a trivial matter. Dinner began with the Vernon's touts. They complimented Mrs. Mason's clothes first, and talked a little about golf until the keen Vernon caught a glimpse of the blankness on Sirius' face with his small eyes. These were topics he didn't understand at all. Vernon immediately realized that something was wrong. Sirius probably didn't play golf. There was a hint of surprise in his heart. It doesn't make sense. Why hasn't he played golf? But this is obviously not his problem, but his own problem, which is his own rudeness. Vernon quickly reviewed himself with an introspective attitude that he had rarely used before. It has to be said that Vernon's sixth sense is really keen. Sirius was so sleepy right now that he just wanted to curl himself up and sleep. Vernon quickly brought up the topic of aristocratic sports in his understanding, and Mr. Mason also understood, and began to talk about fox hunting and equestrianism with Vernon. Mason also wanted to get closer to his boss. Vernon and Mason have never been in contact with these two sports, but it does not prevent them from being familiar with these two sports. They are just like sports car enthusiasts with a monthly salary of several thousand yuan, and they know things that are completely unrelated to themselves. Sirius. In fact, Sirius was still listening to Vernon and the two of them chatting very seriously, because he was really interested in Muggle sports. But the problem is that he dare not open his mouth to ask casually, because he is afraid of asking some questions that have no common sense at all, which makes him look very silent. But when they started talking about hunting small animals, Sirius finally encountered a topic he was familiar with. He still had a lot of experience in hunting small animals, so he actively joined the conversation. This made Vernon and the others breathe a sigh of relief. They had finally scratched his itch. Although during the conversation, Vernon always had an illusion. Sirius in front of him seemed to be participating in fox hunting activities as a dog. When the barbecue was served, Vernon began to chat about family affairs. Mr. Black, you must come from an old and noble family. Sirius, wow, can you tell me about your family? Sirius, only such an ancient family can educate people like you. Sirius, indeed, family has a great influence on my personality. He could only pick up the irrelevant places and say a few words. In the end, he really didn't lie. His current personality was indeed caused by his family environment. Mason, you seem to have mentioned before that you and Duke Roman went on an adventure together in the Alps when you were young. Mrs. Mason took over the conversation. Extreme sports. Yes, I used to play these when I was young, sir. What extreme places have you been to? Azkaban. It's the most extreme place I've ever been. Vernon felt a little familiar with this place name. He seemed to have heard of it before, and he put on a smiley face. I seem to have heard of this place. Have you heard of it? Sirius was surprised. Is this place so well known among Muggles? I heard that the natural environment there must be good, right? Of course, it must be very extreme. That's right, it's very extreme. The dinner was going on in an awkward chat, and Sirius also took the opportunity to catch up on some Muggle common sense. After the dinner was over, the ladies went to drink coffee, and the three big men chatted about drilling rigs at the dining table. In no time, Vernon was signing the biggest order of his life. Sirius gave Mason a wink, and the latter found an excuse to leave. Only Vernon and Sirius were left in the restaurant. Actually, the purpose of my coming today is mainly to thank you for raising my godson for 11 years. Sirius said slowly. Vernon! Exclamation mark. Godson? Why didn't I know that Dolly had such a godfather? Could it be? Thank you for bringing Harry up. He is shocked. That Harry had such a decent, rich godfather. It's not science, it's not theology, it's not even magic. This kind of gentleman has nothing to do with magic. Vernon's heart was broken. At that moment, there were a million possibilities. Uncle Vernon just wanted to curl up in bed and didn't want to face the cold. He can't accept this reality. Sirius quickly took out a pen and a checkbook, quickly wrote down a series of numbers, and handed the check to Vernon. Vernon took it and gasped. Sirius paid £10 very generously. It's hard to imagine what Sirius sold for. In front of Sterling, Uncle Vernon's attitude towards magic quickly softened. He felt that his previous impression of the magic world was a little off. There were eccentric lunatics and gentlemen like Mr. Black. Vernon quickly accepted it all. The visit ended in an atmosphere of joy between the guests and the host. Early the next morning, Uncle Vernon was humming a little song and weeding his lawn when he saw his neighbor next door coming out of his basement pushing a lawnmower. Nice weather. Yeah, it was a great day for weeding. How was your dinner party yesterday? Very good. Vernon's purple face became even more rosy. Mason's boss is Harry's godfather, the same Harry who lost his parents. He has a great godfather. He will be from that school soon. The school in the distance is back. Vernon pointed to a passing car and said, "Oh, what a surprise it would be if Harry were in this car. My nephew Harry." End of this chapter. Chapter 169. Grindelwald doesn't want to buy an aircraft carrier. Sure enough, I still want a cup of hot coffee in the morning. In an office in Durmstrang Castle, an old wizard with a gentle face, an elegant, easygoing and plain old wizard was sipping a cup of coffee while looking at the newspaper that just arrived today. This old wizard is Grindelwald, alias as Astrologus Magistus. At this time Roger came in. Grindelwald raised his head. Roger, come and see the world news. They have written a lot of funny stories, mainly about the British idiot Fudge. This kind of person can actually become the Minister of Magic. I doubt that even Voldemort Stupid Jr. can take the power of the British Ministry of Magic from him. Really, if he was in power instead of Harold Mincham, maybe Voldemort has already succeeded. Roger did not answer. She bent down slightly and handed over a report. Master, this is a report on the development of our power in the Soviet Union, as well as the information I collected. Grindelwald sighed and threw the newspaper on the table. It's these boring reports again. Didn't you read the report yesterday? Why do you want to read it again today? He opened the report while complaining, and quickly read the data and analysis inside. Although this guy seems to be flipping through it at random, in fact, he has already memorized every sentence of analysis and every number in his heart. Also, don't call me Master, please call me Professor Magistus. Okay, Master. By the way, I heard that you are going to buy warships from the Soviet Union. Grindelwald sighed. That's right. I've been researching what kind of ship to buy these 2 days. The aircraft carrier is definitely not good enough. I'm considering buying a cruiser or something else. Of course, no matter what kind of ship it is, we will in our hands, we all have to find a way to transform it. Didn't you say you want to buy an aircraft carrier? Why did you change your mind? Roger was a little curious, which was a bit different from what the owner had said before. Because the aircraft carrier is too expensive, we can't afford it. And it's useless if we buy it. Grindelwald showed a bitter expression. Yes, before he was persuaded by Lou Ren, he wanted to find an opportunity to follow an aircraft carrier from the Soviet Union, but after studying for a while, he found that it was not realistic at all. Why? Because it's too expensive and too sophisticated. If the magic world wanted to raise an aircraft carrier, it would be as difficult as climbing the sky. If you forcefully spend money, it's not impossible to raise it, but it will definitely become a decoration. The technology of the wizarding world lags behind the muggles too much. In their eyes, ships are still sailing ships. Of course, those who are more advanced may understand ironclad ships. Not much difference. Why can an iron lump float in the water? Is it a floating spell? And Grindelwald didn't know at first, thinking how expensive it would be for just one ship, but after checking, the aircraft carrier of the Soviet Union, such as the Kuznetsov aircraft carrier he was interested in at the beginning, cost $30 billion to $35 billion US. The Kirov-class heavy missile cruiser he was studying recently, the Soviet official claimed that the funds spent were equivalent to the funds spent on building a medium-sized city with a population of 200 million. 202,090. 40 billion 12,820,140. Grindelwald could afford the money, but it was not enough just to buy that one. For the warships in the game, you draw them out and put them in the warehouse, and then you are done. This is not the case in reality. Suppose Grindelwald spent money to buy an aircraft carrier from the Soviet Union. What would he need to do next? Is it necessary to equip the aircraft carrier with weapons? What is the aircraft carrier's weapon? Airplane. How to sell the plane? 30 years later, on the aircraft carrier in Central Plains, an aircraft will cost 30 million yuan. This is already the cheapest aircraft in the world. 4 million yuan to buy a 4th-generation fighter jet is simply a free gift, and Grindelwald obviously doesn't have that deep friendship with Hong Yun, and Hong Yun's planes in the 90s were not his first choice, so there's a high probability that he will not be able to buy such high quality and cheap planes. For such aircraft, the aircraft carrier of the Central Plains can hold 15 aircraft, and the same type of aircraft carrier of the Soviet Union can probably accommodate 15 aircraft, which is 60 billion. This is not counting those miscellaneous helicopters. The Kuznetsov aircraft carrier, theoretically, there are 41 carrier aircraft. There are airplanes, and airplanes are not drones, so pilots are needed. The training price of a fighter pilot is about 3 times its own weight in gold. It is conservatively estimated that 20 pilots are needed, which costs about 10 billion, as well as fighter maintenance personnel and command personnel. These items add up, and it is cheaper for you 10. Well, fighter jets alone cost 80 billion RMB. Although the currency 30 years later is not as valuable as it is now, it is still a huge expense. Of course, Grindelwald can also poach pilots directly from the Soviet Union. This is considered opportunistic, but the plane must always be bought. Then the pilots are ready, the plane is bought back, and then the training begins. Well, it costs RMB 10 to take off with fuel, about RMB 50 per piece of ammunition, and an aircraft carrier consumes about 50 tons of fuel per 40 kilometers. According to known data, the aircraft carrier of the same level as Kuznetsov spends 3,100 days at sea. Fuel costs, million yuan. Would Mr. Grindelwald choose credit card or cash? Finally, there are generally 2,000–3,000 people on the Kuznetsov aircraft carrier, so the entire British wizarding world needs to be filled in. If there is a fight with someone, the aircraft carrier is sunk, and the British wizarding world will directly declare its demise. Therefore, some people have estimated that if the prices of the 90s are used, the entire life cycle cost of an aircraft carrier, based on an aircraft carrier serving for 40 years, would require an overall $300 billion, the US dollars of the 90s. And this is only the money needed for an aircraft carrier. If an aircraft carrier really wants to have combat effectiveness, it needs an aircraft carrier battle group. Otherwise, the Japanese Shinano will be a lesson from the past, and it was sunk after only 20 hours of sailing. If Grindelwald only buys an aircraft carrier and not a frigate, it is estimated that the record of the Shinano can be refreshed. Of course, Grindelwald can magically transform the aircraft carrier, but why choose an aircraft carrier? You can also choose other ships. Anyway, the wizards will definitely not use fighter jets to compete with the enemy. The exchange ratio is 1 for 10 wizards, and the wizards will lose money. So Grindelwald has completely disregarded the aircraft carrier. He felt that Lu Ren wanted to buy an aircraft carrier only because of his own aircraft carrier complex. At worst, he would buy him a shell to make a hotel in the future to make him happy. Indeed, Lu Ren did suffer from a lack of aircraft carrier phobia, but he did not consider at the time that a large country with a population of more than 1 billion only has 2 aircraft carriers, and there are 2 more under construction at the same time. Leaving Grindelwald alone, the power is as high as a quarter of the Central Plains, which is really difficult for a strong man. The second volume is coming to an end, and the next third volume is the plot of the summer vacation. Quite nervous, I checked the outline before, and was shocked to find that this volume actually ended at chapter 139. No, this is too unlucky, I have to find a way. Finally, I would like to thank Harry Shenhong, Talunsu Idlers, and Ranger Firefox for their rewards. This thank you seems a bit late, thanks to Time Flowing, Phoenix Changli, Cappuccino that has never tasted cappuccino, Yehu Wenayu, SSNRI, Shukshan 888, and the monthly ticket of Buddha Fat Youth. Special thanks to Ho Yanayan, who often votes for more than a dozen recommendation votes. By the way, ask for a wave of recommendation tickets and monthly tickets. Ha the Great. 3. End of this chapter. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 170 Transcript. It has been almost a year since Grindelwald left Nuremberg. During this year, he gathered his saints, severely damaged the Russian Ministry of Magic, created the appalling Gringotts gold heist, and successfully applied for Durmstrang's History of Magic teacher. It can be said that he had a very exciting year. In addition, he also took the opportunity to invest in some Soviet industries during the internal chaos of the Soviet Union, and formed a business group affiliated to him by the way, Kingdom of Heaven, meaning the Kingdom of God. Just as his followers are saints, don't the saints take it for granted that they work in the Kingdom of Heaven? This group is slowly taking root in the Soviet Union. The end-of-year banquet was so exciting that Harry almost forgot that the exam results hadn't been released yet. Just like an older youth going on a blind date. After all, the day when the results are announced has also come. Early in the morning, Hermione waited anxiously in the common room. She sat on a stool, shaking her legs nervously, while biting some dead skin from her mouth. Just as nervous as her were the remaining little wizards of Gryffindor. However, they were the only ones who were nervous, and the rest of the old students didn't take their grades to heart at all. At this time, most of the old students were still sleeping in the dormitory. Now I feel unbelievable, Hermione looked at the deserted lounge, and couldn't help but complain to Lou Wren next to him. Yes, although Mr. Lou Wren was full of confidence, he was still very early in the morning. Came to the waiting room to wait for the results. The learning attitude of seniors and sisters, this is what I think is incredible. I can't stand their attitude. To be honest, how can they sleep? On this day, they sleep. Do you feel it? Hermione began to complain about the old students' attitude towards grades. I didn't sleep well last night, and I was still thinking about the answer to the last big question in my charms class, and I feel like I completely missed it. I'm screwed, I failed the test. Harry and Ron exchanged helpless glances, then pulled themselves back, trying not to be so conspicuous. The other students in the lounge also stayed as far away from them as possible to avoid disaster. So you said you failed the exam. Lou Wren suddenly became very interested in his fingernails, and responded to Hermione while picking them. Is such that, really? I don't believe it. Hermione? What do you think is wrong? I feel so wrong. Pick one. Hermione. How do you feel about your charms class? Hermione shook her head. No. They say you've always been good in charms. Hermione. Wow, you are annoying. Here comes the owl. Ron interrupted the talk show-like conversation. Sure enough, several owls flew in from the window, and they brought report cards to the little wizards, as well as the professor's project list during the summer vacation, as well as the school's holiday notice. Lou Wren also got his report card. He opened the envelope and took out the form inside. In addition to the subjects, the Hogwarts report card is the corresponding grade, and the specific score will be marked after the grade. Lou Wren read it all the way, and it was all O. If he used a 4-character word to describe his report card, it would undoubtedly be an overflow incident. Lou Wren took another look at the marks marked on the back and showed a bright smile. He got full marks in potions, charms, history of magic, and flying, 114 in herbalism, made a little mistake in astronomy, but still scored 113, and the worst was transfiguration. 110, just passing the line. In fact, there is nothing difficult. As long as you know how to practice, you can memorize the rest of the textbooks. There is no particularly complicated knowledge in the first grade. With a little bit of luck, you can get a high score in the exam. Of course, as the grade rises, the questions become more difficult and more subjective, so there will be no more O's in the report card. Hermione, how did you do in charms? Lou Wren folded his report card, and moved to Hermione's side. Hermione subconsciously hid it for a while, but Lou Wren still saw it. He clearly saw an O after charms, and 112 points in brackets. Wow, look at you, playing me again. Every day you say you failed the exam, but the result is nothing. Oh, Lou Wren dragged out his voice, and mercilessly mocked Zuba. Hermione's face turned red immediately, but in the next moment, her eyes became sharp. How many points did you get in the exam, Lou Wren? You read mine, and I want to read yours too. Then she wrote 10 in hand and came straight to Lou Wren's report card. Unexpectedly, Lou Wren was also experienced in many battles, and immediately Ironbridge escaped Hermione's powerful diamond claws. All this happened only in the blink of an eye. Hermione, let me be healthy. Lou Wren, Sister G doesn't want it. As a result, Ron swooped around and took Lou Wren's report card directly. After opening it, he blurted out the sentence, "Damn it." Harry and Hermione also looked at the report card. After reading it, they looked at Lou Wren with complicated eyes. How can this man be so good at acting? Afterwards, Lou Wren's report card was made public by them, and the little wizards were immediately surprised. Is this reasonable? This is unreasonable. This transcript looks like a typo. Everyone discussed their own grades for a while. Harry and Ron's grades were quite good. Harry's potions was even an O. Hermione was the highest scorer except Lou Ren. Neville also got away with it. It's worth a try. What is mentioned is that his herbal medicine test is extremely high, with a score of 118. Leading the crowd, it can be said that everyone is very satisfied with the results. Next, everyone should pack their bags and prepare to go home, but before going home, the little wizards had one more thing to discuss, and that was what they would do during the summer vacation. When talking about this topic, Hermione immediately took out the project list of the professors, and then analyzed the rationality of each project one by one. Professor Snape intends to conduct a recovery experiment on the Wolfsbane potion. Lou Ren raised his eyebrows when he heard this. Didn't expect that Wolfsbane potion would be invented at this time? Wolfsbane potion can be said to be the gospel of werewolves. It can make werewolves maintain their sanity during the transformation process. The reason werewolves are discriminated against is that they will go crazy on the night of the full moon, attack and infect other humans. If they can be kept sane on the night of the full moon through the wolf poison potion, the living environment of the werewolf will be greatly improved. This potion was invented by Marcus Uncle Damocles at the end of last year. This achievement directly caused a sensation in the magic world, and also allowed Damocles to receive the Medal of Merlin Knights as a master of potions. It was very reasonable for Snape to try to concoct it, and Lou Ren always felt that Snape wanted to optimize the original potion. End of this chapter. Chapter 171. In addition to Snape's potion experiments, other professors offered a variety of summer projects. Professor Flitwick needs several students to be his assistants, to help him maintain various magical facilities in the castle, and to help him organize the summer season of the International Wizards Dueling Tournament. Professor Sprout needs 10 to 15 students to take care of the plants in the greenhouse during the summer vacation, and requires a deeper understanding of botany. Professor McGonagall is the most outrageous. She needs 2 assistants to help her write the school notice letter, and follow her to pick up the students. Muggle-born wizards are preferred. In addition, there are things like helping Aurora Sinista to observe the stars and record data, helping Professor Kiriti Babaji of the Muggle Studies class to collect basic Muggle information, etc. Hermione was enthusiastically discussing with Lou Ren and the others which project was more suitable. She seemed to want to participate in every project, but Lou Ren had already quickly ranked each project in terms of pros and cons in his heart. The projects of the 4 deans must be the top priority, because the mentors are very powerful, and getting closer to them will benefit future development. But there are also good and bad projects among the 4 deans. Professor McGonagall's project must be the most useless of all. What can one learn by writing a student's letter and accompanying a tabby on home visits? It is very certain that he can't learn anything, and he is completely a cully running around. He directly crossed Professor McGonagall's project in his heart. If Professor McGonagall can unlock some hidden benefits, it might be the transformation of an Animagus, but he has almost finished this thing himself, so for him, Professor McGonagall's project is tasteless. The second is Professor Sprout's project. To put it simply, it is to maintain the laboratory. It is conceivable that it is definitely a lot of effort, but the advantage is that you can learn about all kinds of strange plants and increase your knowledge. Professor Flitwick's project is very interesting. Learn some fantastic spells from Professor Flitwick while learning more about Hogwarts Castle. Best of all, you can travel at your own expense and host a dueling tournament with Professor Flitwick. If it wasn't for the fact that Snape's project was too cutting edge, Flitwick should have been ranked first, of course. In terms of fun, Flitwick's project is definitely the most interesting of all projects. The number 1 project in Lou Ren's mind was the repeat experiment of Snape's Wolfsbane potion. This is a well-deserved number 1, and no refutation is accepted. The price of Wolfsbane potion is very expensive. The reason is that it is difficult to prepare, which means that only a master of Snape's level can make it stably. If he could follow Snape to learn how to make this top-notch potion, it would definitely be of great help to his improvement in potion science. If you can master the preparation method of Wolfsbane potion, you will get a hen that can lay golden eggs. What drug is the most profitable? Drugs that are taken on a regular basis are the most profitable. Wolfsbane potion is as precious as penicillin that cannot be mass-produced. If you can make it, you will really have nothing to worry about for the rest of your life. Lou Ren shared his analysis with Hermione, and said, "The most watery project is researched by Muggles, and you can make a difference if you do it casually. The most interesting is Flitwick's, and the most precious is Stanley Neep's project. You can choose according to your needs. What do you think?" Hermione asked curiously. "I don't know how to apply for any of them. I have already made arrangements for my summer vacation, and I will go to France." Lu Ren spread his hands, saying that these projects are all doable, but I don't want any of them. Ron on the side also laughed. Sure enough, I want to go with me, and I don't want to find something to do for myself during the summer vacation. If I can't take a good rest during the summer vacation, what is the meaning of the summer vacation? Ron made the sound of salted fish, but obviously, he had a little misunderstanding about Lu Ren's trip to France. Harry thought for a moment, as if Muggle studies would be a good thing for him, but would Uncle Vernon allow himself to do the project? I personally recommend that you apply for Snape's project. Although, the mentor, up, is more difficult to serve, but the gold content of this project is still very high. Lu Ren noticed Harry's uneasiness, and he suddenly realized a question. Did Sirius contact Harry? Harry, there is one more thing I forgot to tell you. This summer vacation, you should be able to spend it with your godfather. Your godfather will contact you for the specific details. Lu Ren still revealed a little bit. Harry, so as not to make him too uneasy, and the attitude of the Dursleys towards you should have changed a bit. Be positive and don't be so depressed. Harry's breath was a little heavy. He suddenly had a godfather, and he was about to spend the summer vacation at the godfather's house. The news came so suddenly that he was a little dizzy. Hermione and Ron also told Harry a little about their encounter with Sirius while he was in a coma, which made Harry's mood even more complicated. He can't even remember how he packed his luggage. When he came back to his senses, he had already boarded the Hogwarts Express, and the students around him were eating all kinds of snacks, talking and laughing all the way, but he was out of tune with them. His mind was no longer on his mind. Chat is up. Finally, the train stopped at platform 9 of King's Cross Station. The little wizards took off their wizard robes, changed into Muggle costumes, and filed out. At the exit of the platform, there was an employee of the Ministry of Magic. He let the young wizards pass through the passage in batches, lest a large number of people suddenly appear in the wall and attract the attention of the Muggles. Of course, there are also people who are proficient in the Oblivion spell outside the passage. Guarded by Ministry of Magic employees, no Muggle can leave with memories he shouldn't have. Harry said goodbye to his classmates and walked across the aisle with Ron. Lorne and Hermione remained at the school, as did Neville among the first years, who had signed up for Professor Sprout's project. Lu Ren was waiting for Gilladinu. He was going to France with his pets. He was very safe with this warrior wizard. Hermione finally decided to sign up for the projects of Professor McGonagall and Professor Snape at the same time, and have a fulfilling summer vacation. Incredibly, both professors accepted her application. When Harry came out of the passage, he saw Ron's mother, Mrs. Weasley, and Ron's sister, Ginny, and then saw Uncle Vernon. He was wearing a very delicate handmade suit, and Aunt Petunia next to him was also wearing Berbera's latest dress of the season. Next to them stood a handsome middle-aged man in a t-shirt. Vernon showed a surprised expression when he saw Harry, as if he saw a bag of pounds that could walk. He stepped forward, put his arms around Harry, and rubbed his hair. Come on, let me introduce you. This is your godfather, Sirius. Summer vacation has started. Ends the volume at chapter 138. Yet, next volume, Family Teacher, also known as This Tutor is Annoying Enough, double-titled Lu Ren's Bizarre Adventure, and nicknamed French Holiday. Stay tuned. End of this chapter, chapter 172. Departure. Lu Ren packed his luggage, stood on the astronomy tower of the castle, watched the students file out, happily carried their luggage, boarded the fleet across the lake, and finally returned to his home by train. But Lu Ren had no choice. He could only quietly let his tiger, hug the unicorn, stand on the top of the tower, and wait for Gilladin's arrival. Lu Ren didn't wait long. He heard footsteps, and Gilladin appeared on the tower. You came. I am coming. Give me a chance. How to give you a chance? I didn't have a choice before, but now I want to be a tutor. Okay, go talk to the Patriarch and see if he will let you be a tutor. After speaking, Gilladin led Lu Ren down the tower. They walked across the campus and came to the platform of Hogsmeade's railway station. Then, Gilladin took Lu Ren's hand. Lu Ren didn't feel the excitement of being held by the opposite sex at all, because Gilladin's hands were full of thick calluses, which made people feel hard, like sandpaper. Then he felt that he was stuffed into a tube, and Lu Ren felt as if he had become a tube of toothpaste, being squeezed out from a small opening. When he came out, he had already arrived in France. Welcome to Triwizard, Gilladin said to Lu Ren. Triwizard, the provincial capital of the Aube department in the Grand East region of France, is a small city with less than 10 people. The French claim that this is a transportation hub, but outside the Great East, Few French people know the city talking to them. They always say, "Ah, that's a beautiful little city." If you continue to chat, maybe they will say something interesting like, "Is it in the south of France?" But in ancient times, the status of this city was much higher than in modern times it existed in Roman times. Triwizard was the administrative center of the Champagne region in the Middle Ages and is famous for its Champagne Fair, where the Treaty of Triwizard was signed during the 100 Years' War between England and France. During the Roman period, it was called Augusta Pona, which means the city built for Augustus. Doric I had a fierce battle with the Hun leader Attila near Triwizard and repelled him, known as the Battle of Chalons. This battle was the last large-scale military operation of the Western Roman Empire, and after this battle, Attila's goal changed from Gaul to Italy. In the years after the war, Attila led his troops across the Alps into northern Italy and captured several cities including Verona and Milan. Because Attila's army was unprecedented in size and unprecedented in history, the battle was extremely rapid and fierce, and the battle affected for several centuries. Attila showed the Westerners how the Asians in the East fought wars. The next eye-opener for Westerners will be Genghis Khan. But no matter how glorious the past was, Triwizard is now just an unknown small city. The only things it could possibly hold up are a local engineering university and the Triwizard Football Club. Oh, and Pig Guts, its football club, once scored in League 16 in the 17, season, and its university and another university called Compiègne University of Engineering and Technology formed a thing called the UT League. Absolutely, that's right, that Compiègne, where France surrendered in World War II and signed the Treaty of Compiègne. Really? Why not add the University of Versailles to the Union? In this way, several famous treaties in France were collected. Gilles took Lorraine paraded to a quiet and deserted street. Although it was still morning, the street was still empty and deserted. Gilles took out her long sword, and Lorraine noticed that there was an inconspicuous wand tip on the hilt of her sword. She even put the wand on the hilt. Then, she swung the long sword lightly, and a layer of invisible water rippled on her body. The variant of the disillusionment charm can make me look normal in the eyes of outsiders. This pair of ears is still too obstructive sometimes. Then she pushed away a kebab barbecue restaurant next to her. Oh, is their house hidden in a rotisserie? Lorraine thought. 2 kebabs, mayonnaise. Gilles went to the counter and ordered 2 kebabs. Kebab is a snack that originated in the Middle East and then became popular in Europe. There are large and small kebab shops in the streets and alleys of France. The shape of kebab is similar to raugiamo, except that the moon on the outside is a hard dough cake, which contains kebab barbecue, lettuce, onion, tomato, and various sauces. I like it. It feels like the European version of barbecue bibimbap. Generally, a kebab is only €5, and a serving of French fries is also included, which is enough for even an adult male. Gilles bought 2 kebabs and walked out of the kebab shop. Lorraine, are you hungry? Here, take it. Gilles walked outside the store and sat on a table. Eat it, it's very delicious, it's a specialty here, you must try it. Lorraine actually didn't really want to eat. France is not England, it is a country with great food, and he still wants to try local French food in a long-standing family. In case you are not seen, you won't go back on an empty stomach. Lorraine, you speak so directly, and you are still alive, then you must be very good at fighting. After eating, not to mention, the kebab is really delicious. The two walked on the streets of Triwizard. After walking for a while, Gilles led Lorraine to the outside of a desolate courtyard. She quickly climbed over the rusty iron fence, and then put on a handle, allowing Lorraine to climb in too. The yard was empty and overgrown with weeds. Some old wine bottles could be seen faintly among the grass, and there was a dilapidated house in the middle of the yard. Gilles did not bring Lorraine into this room. Instead, she walked toward the depths of the yard along a path that was almost indistinguishable, covered in weeds and garbage. This courtyard is not as small as it looks from the outside. In fact, it is not small. It looks at least half the size of a football field from the outside. As we walked deeper and deeper, the surrounding grass became denser and thicker. At the end of the path was a cave, which seemed to have light. Gilles got into it, and Lorraine followed suit. At first the entrance of the cave was very narrow, allowing only one person to pass through, but after a few hundred steps, it suddenly became open and bright. Lorraine and the others appeared on a hill. From top to bottom, there were some flat and open terraced fields. At the foot of the hill was a small village. The sound of chickens crowing and dogs barking. The terrain here is very strange. The hill where Lorraine was located was connected with several other hills, forming a ring-shaped mountain range. Enclosing the village there is a majestic castle at the gap of the mountains, Lu Ren is sure that there's his destination today. I thought about it, let's set more rules. The average order increases by 5 every day, that is, every Friday. I see that the average order increases by 35, and I will add changes on weekends. I try to make 3 changes on Saturdays and Sundays. I hope you will support genuine subscription at present. The average order is 195, and it will be triggered when it reaches 230 next Friday. End of this chapter. Chapter 173. Augustapona Castle. The hills on all sides formed a circle, and the castle in the closed part of the circle firmly protected the basin in the middle from outside intrusion. From a distance, the castle is in the style of medieval Europe, a bit like Hogwarts, surrounded by a wall made of slatted stones, and the whole castle presents a beige feeling. That's the castle of the Grindelwald family, Augustapona. As for that village, it's a slave of the Grindelwald family, and has been their servant since the Middle Ages. Kailin, who stood beside Lu Ren for him, explained. The Middle Ages? Nearly 1,000 years have passed, why are there still so few people? Jirinu glanced at him with the eyes of a fool, because of the war. At first it was for the Emperor of Rome, then for the King of France, and finally there was World War I and World War II, especially these 2 wars. The former was destroyed. There is a whole generation of men here, and the latter is responsible for the death of nearly, % of the wizards in the family. The Grindelwald family has passed down the blood of martial arts and war. In the current village, every household can have some relatives with a main family relation. After briefly introducing the historical background here, Gillido took Lu Ren down the mountain. At the same time, Lu Ren took off the necklace around his neck and hid it calmly, so as not to cause trouble for himself. A lot of wizards died during World War II, so it wasn't Grindelwald's fault, right? Then it would be more fun to find out that he has a saint necklace. Soon, Lu Ren arrived not far from the castle. The first thing that catches the eye is the tall city wall. You can't see it clearly from a distance, but you can find it when you get close. The city wall here can be called safe as a rock. Each slatted stone is 1 meter long and half a meter high. The walls are as high as 20 meters, and the gaps between the stone slabs are almost invisible. The city gate is not as tall as other castles, it is only 6 meters high. This kind of gate is too small on a wall with a height of 20 meters. The gates were 2 polished oak doors with 2 handles in the shape of lions' heads, the size of real lions' heads. When Karinu came to the door, the lion's face began to tremble, and then it spoke. Who is that? Gillido put his arm in. Karinu, entrusted by the head of the family, went out to discuss matters. Then the lion's head nodded, the gate trembled slightly, and then creaked and pushed open to the sides, revealing a 5-meter-long door opening. That is to say, the city wall was actually 5 meters thick. Jirinu glanced at Lu Ren and said, the lion just now is the lion of honesty. If it senses that you are lying, it will bite off your arm. After passing through the city wall, there is a lawn and a taller castle. Below the castle is a stone base, and the pedestal and the city wall form a way character. Any incoming enemy will water this 20-meter-wide lawn with blood. Lu Ren looked at the castle and felt that it was at least 100 meters long and over 70 meters high. Even with the help of magic during construction, it would definitely be a big project. After entering the castle, Lu Ren and Gillido were taken to a place that looked like a reception room. The first thing they saw was a mural covering an entire wall, which showed a group of soldiers and nomads in Roman armor. In the scene of bloody battles, there is a heroic general and a majestic mage on the right side of the mural, and a nomad king on the left side. After taking the treasure, several personal guards stood next to him holding torches, and the outer line of defense composed of huge wooden carts was already in jeopardy. In addition to murals, there are also some vases, portraits and other furnishings in the room, and a carpet on the ground depicts a huge lion. There is a long mahogany table in the reception room, and there are 2 opposite sofas beside the table. Please sit down. The steward who led the way asked Lu Ren to sit down politely. At this time, Jirinu walked to the corner of the room without saying a word, and then remained silent like a piece of wood. The master will be here soon, please wait a moment. The housekeeper made a cup of black coffee for Lu Ren, placed a small plate of biscuits at the same time, and left the reception room. It is worth mentioning that the butler speaks fluent English without any accent. Lu Ren tasted the biscuit, and there was a strong aroma of butter. Then he took a sip of coffee, which was very mellow. He didn't understand coffee very well, but he also understood that it was definitely not a perfunctory cheap product. He's already here. A thick male voice came from outside the door, And then the door of the living room was pushed open, and a thick and big man walked in with heavy steps. When Lu Ren saw him for the first time, he felt as if he saw the fourth Raikage in an anime. In his previous life, the visitor was extremely burly, with short silver hair, and the muscles on his body stretched the robe tightly. Judging from his appearance, he looks about 70 years old. Lu Ren immediately stood up, bowed slightly to him, and then greeted him in French. "Good afternoon, I am Lu Ren from Hogwarts, very honored to meet you." Hearing that it was French, the burly old man's expression became a little better. "It's okay, just a little thinner, and the accent is too strong." Lu Ren slandered in his heart, "Damn, you have a lot to do. If you can find a French-speaking person from Hogwarts, you will be satisfied." The old man walked up to Lu Ren, forgave him, then squeezed Lu Ren's shoulder with his big hand. "That's right. I think it's okay." Then he turned around quickly and left without hesitation. "Who was that just now?" Lu Ren asked Jirenu after he had walked away. "It's the current Lord of Augustabona Castle, Rager, Sextus Grellet. He looks young, but he is a wizard of the same generation as Dumbledore." "Lu Ren? Question mark? Fuck, he is at least 100 years old, right? 97 is old. He is only 111 years younger than Dumbledore, who is 14 years old, and he can indeed be said to be a wizard of the same generation, but he himself is 97. How old is his granddaughter? Don't be too old." Seeing Lu Ren's doubts, Jirenu explained, "The eldest lady you want to teach is the daughter of his youngest son, who is only 11 years old this year. By the way, his youngest son is only 37 years old this year." "Good guy." Lu Ren called him a good guy, and he was speechless to himself. This raging man is very energetic. "Meng Ke, has father already seen him?" A young voice came from outside the door again, and then a middle-aged man appeared. He has smooth silver-white short hair, looks gentle and quiet, and is in great contrast to his father. If it weren't for all kinds of secret methods in the magic world, just the difference in appearance and the blossoming of the old tree would be enough to make Lu Ren doubt the blood of the person in front of him. End of this chapter. Chapter 174. The Problem Girl. Master has already met Mr. Lu, and he has no objection. The butler replied. "Oh, that's good." After saying this, he sat down on the sofa in front of Lu Ren. Lu Ren stood up again and bowed slightly. "It's my first meeting. It's an honor to meet you. I'm Lu Ren, a student from Hogwarts. I'm Spurious Grellet, nice to meet you too." From the name alone, Lu Ren was convinced that their family had a deep connection with Rome. The butler also poured a cup of coffee for Spurious. He picked up the cup, blew it gently, and took 2 sips slowly before putting it back on the table. Lu Ren knew that his interview was about to begin. "How much do you know about this position?" "Come here to teach the eldest lady for a month, popularize Hogwarts knowledge to her, and help her preview the next semester's lessons." Spurious was still waiting for the next sentence, but found that after Lu Ren said this, it was over. He showed a surprised look. "That's all you know?" Lu Ren. Now he has the feeling of being dragged by an unscrupulous contractor to work illegally. "Yes." "Spurious, all this. Do you know what the salary is? Have you heard anything about what's coming?" "Sorry, I don't know anything. But here is my report card from last semester, you can take a look at it." Lu Ren took out Hogwarts' final report card from his pocket. Grindelwald's pendant. He hid it firmly in the robe, and the bloody plot of taking something and then falling out of the pendant, which caused unnecessary disputes, would definitely not happen to Lu Ren. Spurious took the report card, glanced at it, and his eyes widened a little. He didn't expect that the child's grades were so good. He put down the list and rubbed his hands on his cheeks. He was thinking about how to deal with Lu Ren next. "Do you have any hobbies?" "Well, I like reading and cooking." "Well, then you are qualified here." "Lu Ren? Question mark? You're so forthright it makes me think I came in through the back door." Lu Ren never thought that for a job, if the boss readily hires you, and you have no internal connections, then the job is likely to be flawed. Lu Ren's tutoring was the same. "Your salary is 1 galleon per day, and there will be a bonus after the end. The main task is to help my daughter prepare for Hogwarts' first-year courses, help her familiarize herself with the rules of Hogwarts, and help her with some English lessons by the way. As fully, I allow you to sit in on Jilenu's class. I heard that you are also good at Muggle classes? Then I might trouble you to teach her some Muggle classes." After finishing speaking, Spurious stood up. "Stand up. Come with me and meet my daughter. If she doesn't dislike you, then there's no problem. But the ugly thing is, my daughter is quite stubborn." Spulius talked to Lu Ren while walking. Spulius led Lu Ren to an exquisite door, and when he opened it, what Lu Ren saw was a touch of bright silver. Delicate face, long silver gray shawl hair, and light blue eyes. What a lovely girl. This is Lu Ren's first impression of Alice, an exquisite porcelain doll. What? I'm willing to pay for it as a tutor for such a cute little girl. Lu Ren thought in his heart, and of course he dismissed the idea less than a minute later. Lu Ren, this is my daughter Alice. Spulius introduced to Lu Ren. After learning about Lu Ren's background, the cuteness on the little girl's face disappeared immediately, revealing a look like a little leopard. She put her arms around her chest and spread her feet, and stood up in a very arrogant posture. I don't want to learn those fancy magic. I don't need it at all. Lu Ren. The contrast between before and after was too great, and Lu Ren couldn't accept it for the time being. My dear lady, magic is extremely profound and mysterious. Before Lu Ren could finish speaking, Alice arched her waist, and she appeared in front of Lu Ren with lightning speed, and Lu Ren was directly covered by a fist-waving figure. Well? Exclamation mark. What? Question mark. Lu Ren was stunned. Where's the noble tutor that was agreed upon? Why did you start after we met and chatted a few words? Then, a storm of fists landed on Lu Ren's head and back, and Lu Ren was stunned. In fact, I can't blame Lu Ren. The girl in front of me is not a character like Marcus with a villain on her face. Who would have thought that such a cute little girl like her would do it if she said it, and it would be extremely painful. Lu Ren lost his footing, his feet were hooked again, and he lost his balance and fell to the ground. Then he felt his eyes go dark, and something pressed against his neck. I can't breathe. Alice directly pressed her leg on Lu Ren's neck, and performed a very standard kneeling. After Lu Ren came to the West, he didn't enjoy the knee pillow, but first felt the freedom and democracy of kneeling. Bastard. Lu Ren was also angry, and his affection for the cute girl with white hair was gone. A silver light flashed on his body, or magic text has been activated. Then he stood up against Alice directly, and he could even hear the dislocation of his neck joints. Hey, Alice exclaimed. She couldn't imagine that a little boy who didn't look strong in front of her was so powerful. In a panic, she hung her legs cross-legged on Lu Ren's neck. Lu Ren raised his hand and scratched at the neck, and caught something soft. Then he pulled it hard, and with another shake, Alice was torn off his shoulders and thrown to the ground. Recovery as before. Lu Ren cast a recovery spell on his neck first, and Alice on the ground hadn't recovered yet. Lu Ren rode directly on her back, holding her shoulder with one hand and the back of her head with the other, pressing her firmly to the ground. Are you satisfied? Dissatisfied? Then Alice started struggling like a fish out of water. Lu Ren put more force in his hands and pressed her firmly. This is the power of magic that you despise. Do you know it? Let me go. Alice froze, then struggled harder. Don't let go. Do you know it's wrong? I will never let you go. Lu Ren. This is an ultimatum. Bad boys will be spanked. Let me ask you again, do you know you were wrong? Alice under him realized the seriousness of the problem. Now she was the one who was at a disadvantage. If this guy named Lu Ren really spanked her, it seemed that she really couldn't do anything about him. Do you know who I am? If you dare to touch me, I will make you regret it for the rest of your life. At this time, the girl was already in a state of sternness. Then do you know who I am? Of course I dare to hit you. Alice. I ask you, are you wrong? Write it here so that book friends from other channels can also see it. I hope you will support the genuine subscription at present. The average order is 195, and when the average order reaches 230 next Friday, the update will be triggered. This paragraph does not count towards the total word count. End of this chapter. Chapter 175 Strange Conspiracy. Fourth watch. Subscribe. Lu Ren's question was not answered, and the girl lay motionless on the ground. Lu Ren couldn't help being a little worried. Could he be covering this guy too tightly and cause him to suffocate? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but relax a little bit. Then Alice directly demonstrated what it means. Be quiet like a virgin. Move like a mad rabbit. She almost broke free from Lu Ren's control. If Lu Ren hadn't reacted quickly to control her again, God knows how long this mess would last. After a final struggle, Alice finally gave up. She said in a voice that was not much more than the snoring of a mosquito, I was wrong. I'm sorry, you hurry up. Where did you go wrong? Lu Ren chased after the victory and asked the most classic question between men and women. Once this question is asked, one of the two sides will always surrender. I shouldn't hit you. Okay, then are you convinced? Impressed? Lu-Ren opened Alice lightly, then she jumped up and ran to her father, who was hiding outside the door to watch the play, acting like a spoiled child. "Dad, he bullied me." Lu-Ren stood on the sidelines. It was the Grelot family who tested him before, and now it's his turn to test the family. If Spurious chooses to help his relatives or not, then Lu-Ren will definitely not take this job. He would rather stay in Hogwarts for the whole vacation than stay in Augusta Pona. Spurious picked up his daughter and pondered for a few seconds. "Lu-Ren, do me a favor." Alice showed a tricky expression, but before she could unfold it, Spurious added very gently, "Let me spank her. After all, it's not convenient for a girl to be spanked by you." "What? Wait a moment." Alice was so shocked that she couldn't speak. "I am your dearest and cutest baby, father. Why did you hit me? Just listen to my last," snapped. Spurious slapped Alice on the buttocks, but before he could slap the second time, a thick male voice came over. "What happened?" "Grandpa. Help me, Dad, he hit me." Alice shouted for help as if seeing a straw. "What? Brat, what do you want to do?" Sextus rushed over, but Spurious quickly told him what happened, and the old man stopped and remained silent. There was a glint of hope in Alice's eyes. "This is your fault, Spur." The old man took Alice from Spurious. "The child won't have a long memory if it doesn't hurt a little. You have no strength in your hand. Let me bring it on." Alice. "Grandfather," snapped. "If you lose, you still don't admit your mistake." Snapped. "Proud and arrogant." Snapped. "And you dare to sneak up on visiting guests under our roof. Haven't I taught you? Once a guest comes to our roof as a guest and accepts our offer of bread and salt, the sacred and inviolable right of a guest takes effect. During the period of being a guest thereafter, both parties are not allowed to harm each other. Anyone who violates the law will be tolerated by heaven and earth. Are you trying to piss me off? Grandpa, you didn't teach me." Still sophistry. Snapped, snapped, snapped. Lu-Ren and Spurious escaped from the center of the accident and returned to the living room. "I made you laugh." Spurious sat down on the sofa and sank into it. "Her grandpa and I spoiled her. It's good that you can find a chance to teach her a lesson today. How is it? Do you still want to continue? I wouldn't be surprised if you want to quit now. The girl just convinced you on the surface, but maybe she's thinking of something in her mind." Spurious revealed a look of physical and mental exhaustion. Lu-Ren had an idea and made up his mind. "Actually, I have an immature idea here. You can act out a play, find a group of people to kidnap Alice, and then find a way to let her escape with her own strength. Maybe this will make her more sensible." This sentence made Spurious fall into deep thought. "This plan does make a little sense. It should be a good choice to let my daughter know about the sufferings of the people. Children who hate reading will only understand the importance of learning when they encounter accidents. This is a very simple truth. The problem is that I suspect that my stupid daughter can't come back on her own." Lu-Ren called her a good guy. This daughter was his own at first sight co-author. "Where are you worrying? Are you worrying about this? Lu-Ren, you should also take part in this scene. I think you are the one who can best let Alice know the importance of knowledge." Lu-Ren looked distressed. "Sir, you are making it difficult for me. This is an unplanned teaching. I can show you our family's collection of books, some of which are even handed down from Roman times. There is no other family in the world." Spurious immediately made a promise. "This is my duty, and I am obliged to do so." Lu-Ren immediately agreed. "Just kidding. This is a collection of books from a long-standing magic family. There are many books that Hogwarts may not have, and Dumbledore may not have read them. After I have learned some of the magic in it, when I duel with people in the future, I can totally pretend to shout, 'The magic I have cast, Dumbledore never even dreamed of it.' Of course, you must make sure that your wand is loyal to you at this time, and that the person opposite is not good at using disarming spells, and your nose bridge is still very strong." Next, Spurious began to send people to implement the plan. He also arranged a luxurious room for Lu-Ren. By the way, Lu-Ren was deeply satisfied when he stepped into his room. The room was located in a tower of the castle. Lu-Ren also wondered why he lived in the tower every day. During this time the lighting is good, and the windows can be opened to see the panoramic view of the small village outside. Everything inside looks exquisite, and the most important thing is, there is a double bed, covered with a soft quilt and fluffy pillows. Although it is summer, how can wizards be bothered by the weather? There is naturally magic in the house, which can make the temperature as suitable as spring. Lu-Ren lay down on the bed, sinking into the quilt as soft as a cloud. He opened his cat bag, and let out the grunting fat tiger and the little unicorn. The room was big enough to accommodate a fat tiger. By the way, It really hurts that young lady beating someone. It seems that there are many fights. Has she ever gone to school? Can I really teach such a brat? But if this kid goes to Hogwarts, Dumbledore will suffer. While thinking wildly, Luren fell asleep. When the sun went down, Luren was awakened by a knock on the door. When he opened the door, what Luren never expected was that there was a maid with animal ears standing outside the door. Wow, I'm not going to lose my average subscription because of too many updates, am I? I'm a little worried now. Cyrillic letter deck, uneasiness doubles. Thanks for the reward on the way. End of this chapter, end of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.